Everyone, and welcome to a non-scuffed episode of Week 23's Facecheck here. Semifinals in the books, finals now with our top two teams, FPX and G2, after two very finals-worthy semifinals in the form of FPX and IG, and G2 against SKT. Both matches, a ton of fun. Dom, what was your big takeaway from the weekend?
It just felt like it was the first series was all like mechanics. It was all just team fighting and just 5v5s. And then the second series was mainly macro. It's like teams just playing each other around the map, using Rise to split push, etc. So I thought it was pretty good in terms of, I think there might be a problem. People are all complaining.
Jesus.
Said them too loud or...
Yeah, just lower Dom on Discord a bit and we should be good.
You want to just like, I don't know. Seems...
Go ahead, say something, Dom.
Hello? Check.
That's better. Go for it. Loco, say something. Just
hello.
You're fine.
You want to restart? Or?
Yeah. All right, chat. Yo, getting a good look at everything. All right, I think we're good. Plus that intro was scuffed anyways. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. All right, now 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Facecheck, episode 23. We've gone through all of 2019's competitive League of Legends seasons, and now we have ourselves the final two teams left standing after a grueling World Championship. Two very finals-worthy semifinals in the form of FPX and IG, and SKT versus G2. But only G2 and FPX can claim the crown of the 2019 World Championship. Hi, everyone. Degon here, joining Dom and Loco to break down the weekend's actions, as well as some of the what's wrong with NA kind of issues that also went down throughout the week, plus maybe some very natural gaming experiences that happened in the EU server that I'm sure Dom would have an idea or two about. But let's start with the matches first. Dom, what were your overall takeaways from the matches for the third time?
It felt like it was just macro versus just team fighting. Like FPX and IG, they just fought everything. Like no matter if one team was behind or ahead, there's a dragon coming up. Doesn't matter what the dragon is. All 5 people are just there and like running at each other for it. Whereas like the other series was all about macro. It was all about people playing each other around the map, like split pushing from like Rise teams. And then they were just making like more vision plays, etc. So I think it's going to be a big like war of two different styles in the finals. It should be one team that comes in that has a better sense of how to play the map, and then the other team should theoretically be better at team fighting. So that's what the finals is just going to be about, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, it was so weird watching FPX IG. Like that game was actually so shitty in certain ways, and there were so many people talking about how good it was and like how much like I just don't understand why people love FPX versus IG. I think FPX had really good showings in terms of like what they want to do as a team, but I think the Shy didn't show up. Some of the macro play we got around Baron was just god awful. Like, why do people love it so much?
I think it's just because it was very viscerally fun to see all the fighting. Like a lot of people like to just watch fighting without any regard of macro. And, you know, how long did they dance around Baron? I think they danced around Baron for like 2-3 minutes with multiple guys respawning 2 or 3 times to run out there. That's like exciting to watch, but not exactly sure overall from a macro sense.
On the other hand, I think G2 SKT was really good, and I want to spend majority of our time on that one. I think there were so many things we can talk about, the draft kind of macro, and G2 kind of being like the new SKT or the new Korean team. I think there's always been this era around like Korean teams where if you play them, like the later on the game gets, the better and better they'll be. Like it doesn't matter if they fall behind early because they're the better team fighting team or they have the better macro. And it feels like that kind of, I don't know what to say, like that kind of force and that kind of like, just like height and title now belongs to G2, not SKT or not any Korean team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really big to see no Korean teams in the finals 2 years in a row. Like that to me is a huge shift from what we're used to seeing. for a while, it was only Korean teams, right? It was Korean versus Korean finals over and over again. People were like, can we please get somebody else in the fight? Can we please get like a series where at least it's like a different region competing? Because I think we got like 3 Korean finals in a row. There was the SKT versus Samsung twice, and I'm pretty sure before that it was versus Rocks or versus the team that was Rocks. I forget what their team name was at the time.
Rocks never played in finals.
Not the one with Kuro on. Yeah, Tigers, whatever.
They never played in finals. It was, I think, RNG versus SKT.
No, didn't Kuro play in finals versus SKT?
Kuro? No, they played in semis.
They played in semis.
What was the team that had?
I was thinking about this earlier. I could remember.
What was the team that had Kuro then?
That was Ku Tigers, and they had.
That was semis.
Yeah,
what was
that
the finals
semis.
that year? What was 2015 final then?
2015 Worlds Finals. Lol.
I thought it was Ku in the finals. Damn,
it was Ku.
My bad.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it was okay.
Grand Finals.
Oh,
Tigers.
2016.
Oh, my bad. What the hell? They actually played in finals?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I thought they played in semis. What was the misfortune match?
That was Rocks.
Okay, never mind.
That was
My bad.
2016 at Madison Square Garden.
I'm trolling.
Yeah, so it was like 3 Korean finals in a row. That it doesn't really matter when they like what teams it were, but my point was 3 Korean finals in a row. Last 2 years, you've had no Korean teams even make it to the final. So I think that definitely a lot of just the way that the game changed definitely hurt Korea. Like definitely removal of tracker's knife, things like that. It became more of like you had more chance to win the early game through making plays instead of just being like vision controlled out. And I think that in general, Korea is like a very safe region, and they're starting to get punished for their safety.
So I think Korea is a very lazy region in a certain regard. I think they perfected the game when it was that macro style, when it was that vision style you talked about, and then they never adapted. It's not like Korea always has to be conservative. It's not like Korea always has to play that style. They could adapt, they could put in the effort, but I think Korea as a region has just grown incredibly cocky and incredibly stubborn, and they're refusing to change. I think if you just started from scratch, Korea could be good, and Korea should be the best. Like they have the most experience, they have the largest pool of talent. It's just they are incredibly stubborn and slow to change.
Yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing. Is like when I was talking to Rush about Korean players, he just said that they will always just like fall back to something that's proven rather than try to do something like different. Like they're instead of pulling out new picks, they want to just like default to things that they know are tested over and over again. So that's like why they always like love playing champions like Lee Sin. Like they know which types of champions go at Lee Sin. They understand things like the Thresh Elise combo, and they just want to play the game in a certain way. And they're just not willing to like take the risks that other teams are willing to take. Like even with the Yasuo bot lane pick, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at players like Viper and Teddy have been playing Yasuo AD carry and Korean solo queue for over a year now. And they didn't start actually bringing it out in competitive matches until Perkz went out and like proved that it was good. And obviously G2 is the one team that the Asian teams watch. Like if you listen to all the Asian team interviews, they don't watch much LCS, they don't watch much LEC. The only team they watch is G2. And as soon as G2 started pulling out Syndra, Yasuo, then they started opening up to that type of style and like the idea that those champions are viable in the bot lane. But it's like they're never willing to be the first team to play it. And one thing that I think Europe has a huge advantage of is like when champions come out, if they think something's broken, they don't like wait, or they're not like, oh, well, maybe it won't be good in a competitive game. Maybe it's only like a solo queue champion, or maybe it's only good in scrims because scrims are more aggressive. They find something that they like, they think it's OP, boom, straight into LCS, and they just or LEC, and they just play it in professional matches. So I'm really hyped to see how Europe does. I'm hoping that Europe actually wins this final.
Speaking more on like the Korean part, I also think it has a lot to do with Korean culture, where in the past, like we talked about like how good Korean culture is for like gaming in general. Like there's a leader figure, there's like an elder figure, and everyone listens to them and they play really coordinated, but it's also causing problems. Now that the elder figures, like the older players or the coaches, don't know what's best for the team, or what they know is outdated, it's causing like such a huge ripple effect on the teams. And you can see like the older teams like KT and Genji, which was Samsung before, like really struggle to adapt to the new meta and really adapt to like the newer voices, and those newer voices get stifled, and they only really get to have their own voice in like a brand new team such as Griffin or Damwon or Sandbox. And like all these older teams are just still living in season 4, season 5.
Yeah, and I think it's also just like the way the Korean culture is set up. Like I feel like in Korean teams, you are more ready to be replaced than in any other region, right? Like you have your replacement right there. If you fuck up or you're playing bad, you're gone, right? Like it's just like somebody else will just take your spot. Doesn't matter if you're legacy, doesn't matter if you're Mata and you join SKT and that's supposed to be your like super team. You start underperforming, you just immediately get benched. So I feel like that kind of makes players like less willing to like try out things because they're like, oh shit, if I like try something new and I fuck up, then my spot's gone, right? So I might as well just like do what the coaches want and just play super consistent, and it limits creativity.
I think what you said regarding coaches is like a huge one. Like you just want to do what the coaches tell you to do because coaches have all the power, and there is like a good and a bad part of it, right? If the coach knows what's correct, if coach knows what's good, then great, then everyone's on the same page. But if what the coach knows is outdated, then you're going to make your team outdated.
Yeah, I think that in general, like the thing that I like about EU is just it feels like the coach is just like equal or maybe a little bit lower than the power of the teams. Like you have like grabs, right? But it feels like in G2, if the players really want to do something, they can overrule and they can be like, hey, like this is like how we want to play. And like grabs will kind of just go with like what his players think and trust in their like talent. It seems like that is more rational a lot of times because the players are going to have better ideas of matchups or like their ideas of champion strengths, where coaches are like, obviously, like without being able to play the game at a super high level, they're not going to know all those intricacies to like why certain picks, like why certain people want certain picks. So I feel like just in general, like the EU formula where you have like the coach kind of like a little bit under the players makes for like just stronger cohesiveness, at least in terms of G2. It feels like that's the setup that has allowed them to really like prosper.
Well, I don't think it's under. I think it's like a mutual respecting. I think Grabs really respects his players and vice versa. Like we can talk about like Yanko's like trolling Grabs, but I do think there's huge respect from the G2 players also to the coach, and it has to be like a good mutual communication thing because players, as much as you talk about like them knowing the matchups, like them knowing what's better, a lot of the times they can get carried away and they can do dumb stuff, and it's important there is someone to keep it in check. And I think G2 is incredibly lucky with like the players they have, like them being so fucking devoted to the game and them also like wanting to win so much. Like that's a very, very, very like rare combination, and it's very also rare to have like all 5 players like that.
Yeah, I mean, they have definitely like, if you look at the overall strength of every player and like the flexibility, I think that they have like the best team in the world in terms like player by player, like their abilities to just play anything. Like when you draft a pick for G2, the fact that like they can start the game, right? And their picks can be Gragas, Yasuo, and Syndra, right? That was like their first 3 picks in the last draft. And it's like, oh, that's a triple flex. That could be a Gragas support, a Gragas jungle. That can be a Syndra mid, a Syndra AD carry. That can be a Yasuo AD carry, and a Yasuo mid. Like they're so open-ended, and there's not many teams that can actually do that. Like some teams tried. So for example, the other team that did that a lot this tournament was Damwon, but they look significantly worse where they're playing Gragas support and Yasuo AD carry than when they put the like Yasuo on Showmaker. Obviously, it's like one of Showmaker's good champions, and then they put Canyon on Gragas. It's like most teams don't have that strength where it's like, no, if Caps plays Yasuo, it's still a fucking good Yasuo. Like if Perkz plays Syndra, it's still a really fucking good Syndra. If Mickey X is playing support Gragas, that might be the best Gragas player that we have like in the world right now. Just that amount of flexibility in draft just makes them such a scary team.
I was going to say in terms of the being able to trust your players, I think it's just the fact that EU has better players, because in our experience over at Golden Guardians, like there was a lot of times when players were trying to tell Loco this is what's good, and even after Loco left and with Coach Tyler, they're like, hey, this is what's good. And
I'll tell a Golden Guardian story. I'm not going to mention which player, but I told this player to play a specific pick, and it wasn't a
what
carry
role was
pick.
it? Just so we can try to.
It was one of the 5 roles in League of Legends.
Okay,
I'll be a little bit more specific. One of the 5 roles.
Damn, Loco's getting smarter, man. Holy shit! Thought I could pull a fast one.
So this player, I told him to play a tank, and he told me I don't want to play a tank, and I don't think I should be playing a tank. And I explained to him how in the other teams like. Here.
Yeah, fucking Lorlo, dude. Jesus Christ, Sam. Why are you not playing a fucking tank when your coach tells you to?
Nah, dude, it was clearly definitely my boy, definitely.
Holy fuck. Okay.
So, I was talking to this player about kind of the comp balance that the other teams are doing, how they have a certain amount of carry, certain amount of tanks. And then this player told me, I don't think I should be playing tanks. I think I should be playing a carry. I was like, why? Because I feel like I'm one of the 3 best players in the region at my role. I was like, really? I don't think at the time anyone on Golden Guardians was a 3 best player in their role. And for this player to tell me like he was the 3 best player in his role, and it's a shame to put him on non-carry champions, and to have him play tank or utility, like it kind of shocked me. And I went like step by step regarding like things he's doing wrong, things he's doing right, and then like areas that he could improve on. And it was just very hard to get through to a player where he felt like he should be top 3 material, but he wasn't placed on a top 3 team, and he's not asked to play like a top 3 player.
Yeah, dude.
So I think that
carry's in the name of the role. AD carry, man. Like, you put him off, of course he's gonna get pissed.
I think it's actually a really common problem in NA where players vastly overestimate their skill and like kind of where they are in the food chain and like what they should be doing versus like what is best for the team.
Yeah, and I think that's why you hit on the point right afterwards, just the fact that Grabs has those types of players that can do something like triple flex, as well as the fact that they are that good. Like, they all feel comfortable in not only just playing different champions and go different places, but if they felt like they needed a role swap, they could do that as well.
If G2 players were really out of control, like they wouldn't play stuff like Tom Kench, they wouldn't play stuff like Sejuani. When those things were very meta, like they played them. I mean, they might have done it begrudgingly. They troll about it on Twitter later, but they played them when they were asked to play those kind of champions.
I mean, I think that's the thing that G2 does is like they have egos, but they don't have egos in terms of their own team, right? Like they're not like, oh, I'm the fucking carry of this team. Like I'm the star of the team. Like none of the players actually act like that. Like Wonder, who was a phenomenal carry earlier, like at MSI, he was probably like the standout player. People were saying he's the best top laner in the world, etc. If Orin looks good for the team, he is playing Orin like for his team. It's like, hey, this looks good. I have full confidence in the fact that I can play a tank here and we can win the game based off the fact that our mid and our AD carry can carry. And it feels like all of them are willing to do that. Like Caps is willing to play things like Renekton mid, etc. I just think that is such a healthy team environment. Like you can tell that G2 has full trust in each other. Even if they lose, like, or somebody is underperforming, it's not like you suck. It's like, oh, like the player will just be like, yeah, I just fucking entered that game. That was my bad. Like I just fucking entered. And no one views them as less, because in most teams that I've been in, if somebody like entered on stage, yeah, it's like you've just like lost your like privilege to play like a carry on our team.
Yeah,
it's like you like we tried to play around you, you fucked it up. Now we're gonna go with like the carry that we like believe in to actually perform on stage when it matters. And almost every team is like that to like some degree. Like it's hard for me to see teams like, for example, TSM, and then look at like how Broken Blade ended the year, and it's like, did the team really not like have confidence in his ability to carry? I mean, it looks like to me from the outside, it's like you see the champions that he ends up with, and just the way he's playing at the end of the game, it seems like it's like his priority in the team like went down. Whereas before it was like, give him Akali, give him Vlad, like he's gonna pop off every game. By the end of it, it's like you're not the star of the team anymore. Like no one like trusts you in that way. And I feel like that happens with almost like every team, right? Yeah. Like TL happens as well. So I don't know.
Catch-22. If your player's playing bad, you want it to have less of like ownership of the team. Well, not ownership, but less like impact of the team. Like you want it on tanks, and you want the hot players on carries. But you could also go the C9 route where Balls is like Hearthstone Diamond 2, and then you give him like Darius, and then he gets a pentakill. It is like, it's really hard to believe in someone and put all your like hard work and effort, and you're like, oh my god, this one guy that's been underperforming, like we're gonna give him the carry. And sometimes that's best in the meta, and sometimes that's best for the team to give someone confidence.
Well, that was one of the best parts of that old C9 team, was the fact that they had the same mentality about G2, where they all believed in each other, at least at the beginning. Obviously, things fell off towards the end. But at the beginning, they had this confidence that, hey, we're all good players. Like anyone can carry at any point. We believe in each other. If things go bad, we'll try to fix the problems, and we're going to like come out of it together as a team. It doesn't feel like it's like that for any NA team right now. It feels like even like the best teams, it's like you can like sense, it's like, ooh, these players like are on the chopping block. Is this guy going to be there next year? I don't think so. Like you'll always feel like that.
And TL, just look at TL. Yeah. Like there's been so much rumor started. I don't know why people do this, but Steve followed Broxa, and then he followed some other EU jungler, and Xmith's contract's up this year. So like people are talking about, oh, they're picking up a different jungle. They're picking up a different jungle. It's just, I cannot believe at this stage where if you're Steve, right, you can talk to Fnatic owner like that. And you can't talk to Broxa without talking to the Fnatic owner. Why do you need to follow him like on Twitter? Like just talk to him. Like it just creates rumors. If for some reason Xmith is leaving, then like it's not that big of a problem. But if he's staying and then Steve followed all these EU junglers, then that's going to cause the rift in the team. It's just, yeah, even on absolute top tier teams, like there's always like who's the next guy, like who's the one getting kicked.
Right. And even to your NA point, I think that was just very unique and special to High, right? We always talked about High and Afremu being those leaders that are able to reset and bring people back from the brink, and working with him and getting to know him. It's a unique thing to him. And with him retiring and moving on, there really hasn't been that kind of a player, that kind of a person that is able to just reset in the face of tilt. You know, I think Doublelift has done a good job of growing from how bad it was for him now, and you know, he acquits himself well in interviews, but you know, after TL's losses here, like Loco said, it just seems like a big rumor mill on who's on the chopping block and who's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it also just makes a lot of sense. Like the reason why the Xmithy thing, like people think that would be true is if anyone was to get replaced on TL, he would be like the first name that people would say, right?
Yep.
Because like it doesn't look like he has that much like of a ceiling. Like he's consistent and he's like good for NA standards, but it seems like at this point, like you need players that are able to like still grow and become better over time with how the game's going. So like players that could be, you know, like good EU junglers. Like obviously there's an import slot that's going to be freed up, I'm pretty sure, because Jensen is now native player technically. So like you can look for an import, you can look for people like Blabber, like all these players that have higher skill ceilings seem like they would just fit the team more with like TL trying to improve. And also TL's the type of team where they're not going to try to sit there with the power of friendship, like, and try to beat you. It's like, if we think that there's anyone better than you, like fuck team environment, we're getting that better player. That's always been kind of the motto of TL.
Yeah. And also, like, regarding the thing you said last about when's the last time NA had a team like this? I think the last time NA had a team like this was the Hunter, Doublelift, Spencer, and Bjergsen.
TSM 2016.
TSM. And then last time Korea had a team like that was like the Rocks Tiger, like Gorilla, Prey, Kuro, Peanut, Smep. Like, it's kind of like the brotherhood team where like you guys are all brothers. You like spending time with each other outside of the game. Because right now in competitive scene, as soon as you're done, like you have your own friend group and you have your own e-girls that you want to go see, and like that group is very separate. And
it's actually true.
One thing that's like really common within teams that I realize is not all 5 hangs out, and it's like maybe 2 people will have the same friend group, or 1 person will have a friend group and they'll bring in 1 person, and there will be like mini cliques within the team.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, it's such an advantage. I feel like that was like, I was lucky enough to play on one team that was like that. So old Dignitas had that like that trust in each other where it's like anyone could carry at any point. If someone was playing well, like we didn't mind sacrificing for each other. We didn't care about like how we looked on stage. Like it's like we would just do whatever to win. That's such an OP thing to be a part of. Like it's gives you like this extra level that you can get to that like it makes you better than the sum of your parts, where it feels like when you're not a team like that, it's just like you are going to be either equal or worse than what the sum of your parts should be.
What team was that? What team was that? Was that
Dignitas with Skara, Voyboy, Cutie? Yeah. Like our team, like we honestly just all thought, like everyone just had like a bunch of mutual respect for each other.
Also, that's what's so overpowered about G2. They have 5 insane players that also get along with like a great culture. That's just so fucking crazy. And I don't think we're going to get a team like that for a long time if this G2 ever breaks up.
Yeah, I think that the huge thing there, like with G2, is accountability. Like, I think the hardest thing is when somebody's underperforming, but they don't address it themselves. And then it's like kind of like the elephant in the room. It's like, okay, we got to like talk about this at some point, but it's awkward. Like no one wants to be like, hey, dude, why do you suck now? Like it's weird, right? So I think the thing about G2 is like if a player ints, like you can hear like during the game, they're just like, oh, I'm inting this one so hard. Like Yankos is playing Qiyana, he's like 0-4. You listen to the Fnatic voice or the G2 voice comms, and he's just like, he's like, yeah, I fucking hard inted. I mean, we're still gonna win because you guys are so good, but like my fucking bad. I played like shit. Like even like Wonder's tweet after the game where he talks about like, oh yeah, like I inted so hard that I had to put myself on Orin duty. It's kind of like a joke, but you can tell that like after like the game, you know, he goes to the team like, hey, I played like really bad that game. Like it shouldn't be like that. It's just like I underperformed. Like, and everyone's like, okay, cool. Like we'll just move on to the next thing. Like having that accountability within your team where every player feels comfortable doing that, because a lot of times like people don't want to like admit their flaws, because it's like gives you it makes you vulnerable within the team, right? But it seems like they have no problem doing that on G2, and I think that's really, really strong.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be vulnerable with people if you don't trust them. And G2 has that trust between each other, so they can like openly admit mistakes. And when you don't have that trust, like people don't admit mistakes, and people are like, well, I play bad, but if you didn't do this, I wouldn't be in this situation. If we didn't have this pick, then I wouldn't be in this situation. And it's always deflection after deflection.
Yeah, it's deflection. It's like, oh, well, the draft is bad. Like, I mean, if you're going to pick me Camille, and like, they'll just ignore like the mistakes. Like if you didn't see that game, because obviously the players in the game aren't like able to see everything. I'm sure that bot lane doesn't know how Wonder died in that first turret dive. It's just like, damn, the Renekton turret dove him. Fuck. It's like, oh man, he lived with 1 HP. Like you can make that sound so much different than it is if like Wonder's like, oh fuck, he lived with 1 HP, like that type of shit. Instead of like, wait, I like wasted my E, wasted my shield, flashed poorly and died. Like it's the amount of like ability to just accurately assess what's going on is so valuable, because like you can't get to a proper conclusion if the facts that you're getting from your teammates are like not completely true.
Yeah, and I like that what you said there. It's twofold. It's the accountability of focusing it on yourself and being accurate with what you just saw. Because there are guys that we've worked with before that are like, oh shit, I'm inting, that's my bad, but then can't fix it. Like they're like, they can't fix it. And then there's
or they'll come to the wrong conclusion. They'll be like, oh, well, I just can't play Camille into Renekton.
Exactly.
It's like, no, you can't play Camille into Renekton if you suicide like at level 2. Exactly. Then you can't play Camille into Renekton. It's not that the matchup is on like they'll blame draft and like all these different things. But I just love like just that G2 is able to, you know, everyone is just sees the game in the same way, you know? Yeah. Like if they watch the same play, they'll come to the same conclusion, it feels like. And they're able to like accurately tell each other what that play was, how the situation went, and everyone just believes that the person like is, you know, giving them realistic perception of the situation instead of just like trying to like hype themselves up or make them look a certain way.
Right. And I think it's cool that G2 has done enough on their social, with the way that we get to know Ocelot, with the way that we've gotten to know Grabs over time, that like this is what we're perceiving. We don't even know if that's true. We can't even say the same thing about FPX. Like, oh, they're the friendship team or they're able to hold each other accountable. Yeah. We don't know that. But the way that G2 has been able to cultivate that kind of environment and cultivate that kind of brand is unique. And as you guys have said, we might not be able to see that for a very long time if they decide to break up.
G2 very purposely puts out only certain snippets of themselves. There's only one time where I can think of where G2 actually put out something about their like internal workings that wasn't from G2. It was the LEC document. I forgot what it was like, but LEC had like a mini documentary on finals, like how teams were behind like the scenes. And that was like the first time where we got a glimpse into G2 that wasn't from like a G2 perspective. And they seemed like an extremely serious team. It's just their social and their marketing and their sales department and them overall as a team does such a good job of, this is the image we want to portray, and this is the only parts we're going to show.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And then like, I guess all of this that we've been talking about, it just plays into like how comfortable you are on stage. If you're in like a good team environment, you believe in each other, it just becomes like, hey, we can just play the best we can. If we lose, we lose, but we're just going to put out our best performance because we're not worried about all these other factors that every other player is worried about. Like, I'm sure that in the back of Smithy's head, when he's playing like these matches of worlds, it's like, hey, you know, like, I know I'm the kind of like the lower man on the totem pole. If I fuck up like really bad, my job could be lost. Like even if people say that they don't think about things like this, like those types of thoughts are plaguing you unless you have like a certain amount of like comfort and like security within your team.
Funny how DoubleLive can make a video about like, hey guys, don't blame each other, and he can be like very vocal. Like he's releasing vlogs of like him going to like Universal. Like Double's like really comfortable with his position on the team, and he knows he won't be replaced. Not the same for everyone else on the team.
Yep, agreed.
I mean, to be fair, I think when DoubleLive got kicked from TSM, he didn't expect he was going to get kicked from TSM too. That might just be a DoubleLive thing, not just a specific to. And same when he got kicked from CLG, it's just specific to who he is and not necessarily just his position on the team.
And definitely to a certain regard, but if your off season is already starting and you know you're not going to be on the team next year, you're not making vlogs, you're not streaming.
That's true. All right. That was enough about NA, G2, English-speaking squads. Let's get to the all-LPL semifinals here, IG and FPX. It was entertaining for some, not so entertaining for the analytical big brain mind of Loco Doco. Loco, why didn't you like this series from a macro standpoint? And then we can go into game by game.
I think it was game 2 where they were just was it game 1 or game 2 where they just kept inting into Baron over and over again?
It was game 2.
It was just so awful to see. Like, just take a reset together as a team. Like, I've talked about it on other shows about how the meta right now is kind of like rugby. You always want to stay aggressive, like take a small reset, take a small step back if you need to, but make sure you're coordinated about resetting. Make sure you can be active on the map. Like reset when your support has no wards, like reset when you only have one pink ward on the map. Like, and just the basics of the game weren't followed. So it was such a messy series to see.
It's really hard to see that series and not think that whoever came out of the other series was going to be like the favorite in the final, because the game was so like it was played at such a low level strategically, right? Like, and you don't know if IG just like the reason why that was, but like when you look at the team comps that IG drafted, like conceptually, right? You're playing into a Qiyana Rumble, right? And then you're just taking 5v5 fights around Baron all the time, like over and over again when you're playing Quinn. It's like, if you're going to play Quinn, if you're going to play Lucian, if you're going to play these types of champions, like you have to like abuse the fact that, hey, Lucian can go into the side lane versus GP and split him down and eventually pressure him. Like the Quinn can bully a Renekton and like play that matchup and use that advantage and then roam to the team. It just felt like LPL, like regardless, like you could go into a fight, right? And you could be like, okay, there's no chance that this team wins the fight. And the team that is going to lose the fight will still take the fight and lose it. Like, even when going into it, like anyone who plays the game will look at it and be like, hey, we're behind. They have a better, they all power spiked right now. They have more items than us. There's no way we can like actually win this fight. They'll just like rely on like in their mind, like outplaying it, and they'll just run in and fight and just die over and over again. And I just can't see a team like G2 or SKT not being able to capitalize on that, because when like you saw it so many times, when G2 is behind, their biggest strength is that they'll make the decision ahead of time. They know that the dragon's coming up in 2 minutes. Doesn't matter if it's an Infernal. If they can't fight it, they can't fight it. And they're prepping to already make it a counterplay on top side. They're like, oh, we're going to fucking dive this tier 2. We're going to start like we're going to make a trade of objectives. We're going to prolong the game. We're going to get something out of this because we already know we can't fight. Where it seems like FPX and IG, they play like almost kind of like that solo queue style where it's like, they don't even think about like whether like they don't set up the dragon. They don't set up vision. It's like, oh, dragon's coming up. Let's fucking run in there like monkeys and just like have a fucking bloodbath. I mean, exactly
what you said. It's so contrasting. Like G2 identifies like they're like 2 to 3K behind them. They're like, we don't think this fight is winnable, or we don't think it's favorable for us to take it. And they set up a different play. IG or FPX, they're like, there's a dragon, we're fighting. Like it's 10 minutes, guys. Everyone get up to Rift Her. Yeah. We're gonna fight.
It's like 22 minutes and a Cloud Drake is spawning. They're like, all right, let's fucking lose the game over it. It's like, wait, what? Like, don't you want to like maybe scale a little bit? Like, use the fucking Quinn versus Renekton. The matchup only gets better over time, and that like, no. We're gonna run directly into the Qiyana Rumble S5 and just get dicked. Like they'll just get fucking aced. Where that's like versus better teams. I feel like that's not gonna work. I mean, maybe these are the best teams, right? FPX could be the best team in the world. We'll see. Obviously, they do a lot of things that throw the enemies off guard. Their drafts are really hard. I feel like that is the biggest advantage that FPX has over G2. It seems like they play overall just like some champions. Like the main one that I think of is Qiyana, right? Yeah. Like G2, I'm pretty sure they don't play Qiyana. I was really surprised that SKT kept on banning it. But the Qiyana looks so good from Tien when he plays it. Like he understands like, hey, it's not the best early matchup, whatever. He's able to navigate the early matchups where he's not supposed to win until he's 6. And then when they're at 6, like they're able to get like fight after fight after fight. Now, will they be able to do this against a team that is not just giving them the free fights? Who knows? But I think that in general, FPX can get a draft advantage over G2.
Dude, speaking of Qiyana, so Qiyana's supposed to be a laner, right? She's not supposed to be a jungler. One of her limitation is she's supposed to be an extremely weak champion between level 1 and 2, and she's supposed to be stronger in 3. So you're supposed to be able to bully her during level 1 and 2. Well, she can just go jungle, and you can't really bully her. And Riot also, when they did the Assassin rework, they talked about how toxic CC can be on Assassin, like no counterplay engage, no counterplay kill windows and kill patterns. And they're like, well, Qiyana has a no counterplay kill pattern and also CC. Like they broke all their design pillars when designing Qiyana, and she's just so broken and she does so many things that Assassin shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that she really struggles with, at least in the jungle, is like clear speed. Her early clear is like really, really bad. And up until 6, she doesn't do that much damage. And up until you have warrior plus 6, you don't actually win versus any jungler. So if like a Lee Sin has red smite and a Qiyana has red smite and they walk into each other level 6 and they're like in the middle of the river, the Lee Sin should win that fight every time. Like that should just not be a winnable fight for the Qiyana. But it seems like when Tien plays it, he's always able to just like get a good fight. Like he just ends up getting a good fight, and then it doesn't matter that he's naturally supposed to be behind or whatever. And partly, I think that's kind of like Ning not being that great of a jungler. Like it seemed like he has like a lot of flaws in terms of just mechanics and then like knowing matchups and stuff, probably because he wasn't playing that much with the team. I don't think that he was expected to play that much this Worlds. So I just think that in general, that can be exploited. I'm not sure how G2's drafts are going to look, because when you're playing against a team like FPX, most teams are banning Rise. Like Rise is a really scary champion to give Doinb. So it feels like you have to, like, if you're purple side, you have to ban Pantheon, Qiyana, Rise against them. And maybe they'll be giving Doinb Rise and they'll just play Orianna into it, like Caps did in the semifinals versus SKT. But I'm not sure if that's going to be like an effective strategy, like how they're going to play throughout the series. So I think that those are going to be like really interesting things. Like how's the priority on Qiyana? How's the priority into Rise? You're going to have to give FPX something that they're pretty good at. So when you give them that champion, whether it be like Renekton, which they're pretty good at, or Rise or Qiyana, how is your counter? Like, can your counter actually beat it? And if it can, then you're going to be able to win some of these purple side games. If not, it's going to be like whoever gets blue side just wins every game.
Yeah, and for me, that was the big thing with FPX. It's like, how much did we really get to know about Tien when he gets pushed? Because Ning was 3 games Gragas, 1 game Olaf. You know, Qiyana was not a factor in it. And now that we've seen SKT respect ban Qiyana against Jankos, we know that
I thought that was horrible. I was very against the Qiyana ban because if you look at quarterfinal,
we'll save that for SKT.
Okay. We'll save that to there. My point is that FPX played a clearly draft favored match against IG because of Ning, because of the jungle there. Ning did have some pretty good Gragas ult. I mean, it is Gragas. It is one of the higher tier guys, but it just hampered the rest of the draft all the way through, specifically because, as you said, Doinb's Rise was a very specific champion that needed to get removed.
So for me, like the draft advantage doesn't really come from it comes a little bit from player pools, but if you look at the drafts that IG is doing, they're playing stuff like Quinn, they're playing stuff like Lucian, they're playing stuff like Jace. When you play these champions, you're inherently weaker in team fights. But IG was just so ready to take team fights again and again and again. Like FPX is drafting full-on team fight comps. They're drafting Nautilus Rumble. And IG is drafting these lane champions, and they're not laning, and they're constantly team fighting. Like if you're gonna go to Fight Club 24/7, like be ready to fight. Like I just don't understand what IG's game plan was. And another thing that was really disappointing about IG is the Shy looked so quiet versus Gimgun. I thought that was going to be like a huge matchup. Like we saw how much the Shy took over the sword, and Gimgun kind of had a really quiet tournament up until this point. I was like, oh man, this is going to be like a really important matchup for IG, like the Shy being able to dominate Gimgun. And it didn't happen at all. Like just Shy was even on matchups where he should be massively ahead.
Yeah, but those are like not the Shy champions. That was what was weird. It's like it felt like they scrimmed SKT and then he just adapted like Khan's champion pool. Like Khan is the guy that like was playing the Quinn versus Renekton. He was playing the Lucian versus GP. And it feels like they just scrimmed that team. And then he's like, okay, these are good matchups, but he doesn't really play Lucian. Like you could tell by just the way he was like mastering, or like how he would mechanically play the champion in fights, that's just not one of his. He doesn't have the same level of finesse that he has on like his really good champions. Like he doesn't have that same level of finesse on Quinn or Lucian that he has on Jace or that he has on Kayle or Vlad, you know? So for me, it was just really weird to see like those types of picks on him, because not only are they team fighting 24/7, but it's like those are just that's not what he played to get to this point in the tournament.
Yeah, their one win when he played Vlad and was able to get to the back line and blow people up. So,
yeah, and the Kayle game they should have won. Like game 4, it was so sad watching the last 5 minutes of that game. Like just seeing them just int the whole game away. That game should have been impossible for IG to lose at that point. They got through like Nautilus mid is not something that scales ridiculously well. Like Nautilus mid is like a mid game annoying champion. It's like, damn, he's got Proto Belt and Zhonya's. He's hard to kill. He still does like decent damage, not insane damage, but he provides a lot of CC. That's the biggest point for Nautilus mid in terms of like his strength. And they got through that. They're winning. They have Baron, and then they just start losing fight after fight after fight. They didn't get the Kai'Sa Kayle combo off once. Balan's just dying before the fight happens, like over and over. It was just so frustrating to watch because there's no world where IG should ever lose that game after the point that they got to.
Also, speaking of Game 4, I really love what FPX did versus Kale. I think so many teams fail versus Kale because they're like, okay, it's a Kale, you just pick Jace into it and you beat her early. Or like you pick Lucian into it and you beat her early. I think FPX had the right idea. You treat it kind of like a gangplank. It's a champion that's going to scale almost anyways, but you need to blow it out early. You need to dive it early. You need to wave control well versus it. Really good to finally see a team dive the Kale constantly. I don't think Kale top's a real thing. I think you can play like this all the fucking time. Let them have Kale, draft something that can beat it, wave control, and constantly dive it.
I just think that the game was so skewed against the Kale that it made that opportunity way bigger than it should be. Like, I think that there is an argument to be made for pressuring the Kale early, but this is a Kale that started without flash and like down experience because of the failed invade. So that whole game, it just like the fact that he was able to, he got solo killed by Gimgoon and all this stuff, like that's just because he wasn't able to actually play the lane normally. He didn't start the lane with E, and he's not like klepto trading from full life with his flash up. It's like Gimgoon could just like completely chimp out on him because he wasn't in the lane when it started, and he was just down his flash, and like I think he was down a couple pots beforehand as well.
Yeah, but still, like when we saw the Kale versus other matchups before, especially when we saw it in the IG Griffin series, I hated how they just left it like Kale versus Jace. Like, your Jace, like you can slowly beat the Kale. Like, don't do that. Like, she's going to scale indefinitely if you don't put a lot of pressure on it. I just think any game where there is a Kale, both teams have to put so much focus on it in like the first 5 to 10 minutes.
I mean, they put a lot of focus on it, and then you saw like how the game turned out. It's like the Shy just gets a random quadra kill, and it's like, oh, now it's like a fucking 20 stack Majai's 3 item Kale at like level 15. It's like you should auto lose at that point, right? And I feel like
it's a Kale Kai'Sa Galio too. Yeah. There's so many people that can
Kale Kai'Sa fucking Galio, like Rakan. Like you have like the engage, you have Rakan Galio engage, and then you can just send in the Kai'Sa with the Kale. Like it's just, but they never got that fight one time. Their fight was always the Shy and JackieLove just running together, like holding hands, both getting CC'd, no Kale ult, no Kai'Sa ult, and just dying. Like it was just so tragic to watch because like I feel like that's a game where you're always going to be super tilted. Like the Shy's going to remember that game so much because obviously the Soul Stealer buy is like a little bit disrespectful at that point. And then just like the way that they played out the game, it's like you could like obviously I think they know that they should have never lost that game. And just being able to lose, like with Baron buff, they're just losing fights. It's like, wait, you have a split Kale. How do you ever lose a fight in this situation? Balan just gets caught, dies for free, and then the game just ends.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about the Doinb thing. So a lot of people have very differing opinions on Doinb, and Nemesis was extremely vocal about how he felt like Doinb is the worst mid left in the tournament. What was your thoughts on that, Dom?
I mean, so I understand why Nemesis said that in terms of like pure like 1v1 laning of like mage versus mage. Like if you give Doinb like a Cassio or an Orianna or something, I feel like he's not going to like perform as well as like any of the other mids, right? Like he doesn't have those like super clean mechanics, but I feel like he just has like he has the intangibles that I guess Nemesis does it right high. Like his champion pool is obviously like he has a lot of counter picks that he likes. He just makes you play his game, which is I think super valuable. So I personally think Doinb has had like a good tournament. I think he's like a very good player, but I can understand like I guess to me it's just like, oh, Nemesis just doesn't value the things that Doinb is good at as a mid laner.
Daniel, could you put up the tweet from Frost?
Yeah, I'm on it.
So I think Doinb is good at stuff that other players don't really appreciate. Doinb is really good about playing losing matchups, like melee matchups into range matchups, and farming and not like giving up that much CS and not giving up that much priority. Doinb is extremely good at setting up for his jungle. Doinb is good at coordinating along with the support and jungle, setting up good 3v3s. He's really good about roaming. All the things that Doinb is good at, it's not stuff other players would really appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard to like, I feel like a lot of people see like Doinb, right? And they're like, oh, dude, like this guy is roaming, but like the enemy mid laner should have called it, and then that roam should never work out. But it's like the way that he's always able to like look for those roams, and like the fact that he's taking like Predator Rumble mid and rushing Merc Treads. Like obviously, if you take Predator Rumble mid and you rush Merc Treads, you're not going to be able to like 1v1 bully the lane. He's not picking that so he can like shit on the Syndra in lane. It's just like he's trying to win the map in other ways. And I think that he understands like really well like when the enemy is in a vulnerable position. Like he's so fast at like pulling the trigger of like, hey, this guy is fucking up. Like I'm gonna make the play on him. and he can see those opportunities when other players can't. So I think that that's like his biggest strength as a player is just like roaming, understanding the map, and then just like doing like the mental prep for how situations are going to play out. Like, hey, this guy walked close to the wall, rumble ult, burn his flash, boom. Okay, reset, next play. Like he is very good. Like he's very crisp with his decisions. He makes them very quickly, and they're almost always correct. So I'm a Doinb fan. Like I think that he's played well. I don't think that he has the sickest mechanics out of any mid laner. Like obviously he's the type of player where you have to play to his style, but right now it seems like he's able to like play his style every single game, and we'll see if G2 is able to exploit it. It looks like he hasn't really had a bad game of Worlds.
Yeah,
and also his style is like stuff other people don't want to do. Like what other mid laner wants to be playing Nautilus mid?
That was my point. Like when was the last time we've had a non-superstar mid laner at the World Finals? You know, like this, even by superstar, I mean like the guy that everyone plays around, the guy that has all the stats, because everything you just described are all these intangibles that are hard to
I guess Crown.
Calculate.
Yeah, Crown with Malzahar. That was definitely a bot lane meta. That was like really
I'd say Crown was the last one that has actually been able to play like a style where it's like he's not the center of the team.
Don't ever say that next to him. No, he'll go bonkers and he'll give you an essay on why Malzahar was Crown.
Crown, he will.
Yeah.
Wait, did you do this?
I personally didn't, but someone else did. And then someone else talked about neutralizing Faker, and he wasn't very appreciative.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he like when you win a world championship, you don't want to be like, yeah, but like I wasn't as good as my counterpart. I just had a better team. Like you want to feel like you did do something, but realistically, like I don't know anyone in 2017 that would have said that Crown was a better mid laner than Faker.
So that's one of his least favorite narratives, like that he was worse than Faker. And then his point of view is it was a team decision that it was best for him to play Malzahar. And
I mean, of course you want to say that, bro. Like if I played against Faker, I wouldn't want to be like, this guy is way better than me. And like, I just have to fucking like neutralize him and just not feed. Like you don't want to be like, oh, I won a world championship by not feeding Faker. Like you want to feel like, hey, dude, I fucking went out there. I played that game. I beat his ass. Like,
well, I mean,
you pressed E on minions, you pressed EW on every wave, and then sat behind your turret, and then prayed that your team fucking won for an entire series.
Sometimes you have to do EWQ to get the wave clear really quickly.
Yeah, it depends on your mana, but like,
Rookie's one of the best mid laners in the world, and so Doinb played 2-3 games of Nautilus mid, like that kind of sounds like the same type of thing that Doinb had to do, and I feel like we're talking about Doinb very differently than
man. I would love to see like other picks into the Nautilus mid. I really was not a fan. Like it felt like Rookie didn't really prep well for the Nautilus mid. I mean, I thought the Galio definitely looked the best out of everything he played, where he just matched it. But there are definitely champions that should just be able to shit on a Nautilus mid, and like he kept on picking like Jace into it, and it's like, what is a Jace gonna do versus Nautilus, man? Like you're never gonna be able to like poke him out of lane and all that shit.
So the thing about League of Legends right now, especially with most meta matchup, it's so figured out and players have over like 200 games on certain mid lane matchups, right? But when you add in stuff like Nautilus mid, most players don't have good practice versus it. And also, how do you practice versus I think it's pretty fair to say Doinb is the best Nautilus mid in the world. How do you practice versus Nautilus mid when no one else can play Nautilus mid on the kind of the level that Doinb can?
Because it's really about like your prep and like how well you're accurately able to like determine how the matchup should go without having played it. It's like, okay, what is Nautilus strengths, right? Obviously, it's going to lose out in farm. Like it just sets up ganks super well, and it's able to like pressure lanes, and like it's really good mid game once you have your two items. It's like being able to know like in your own champion wheelhouse, like what does that open up for me that normally I couldn't be able to play? Like I couldn't play because it's like I need something with an escape. Like I'm not sure about every matchup. Maybe there's some matchups that really bully it. Like maybe Orianna's really good into Nautilus mid. Who knows? There's
a problem. You're asking League of Legends player to think creatively, and a lot of the League of Legends players don't think creatively. They're just very good at refining stuff and learning stuff and repeating it very well.
Except for G2.
Yep, that's the other exception. But yeah, that is like the norm. Like most League of Legends players, they don't innovate. They're like, okay, I see Faker play this matchup. I see Caps play this matchup. So I win at level 4. I wave control 3 waves exactly the same way Faker does. See, now I'm top tier. And a lot of the times, just doing that will put you to the very top of the league.
Like I don't know the matchups, obviously, right? But like I would think that certain champions would be good into Nautilus mid. Like how is Azir into Nautilus mid? Feels like it would be able to get out of the engage every single time. Does a fuck ton of damage, able to play backline. How's Corki versus Nautilus mid? I know these champions were nerfed since they were super OP, but like when somebody's playing something that's off meta like this that has defined weaknesses, right? Like Nautilus has big weaknesses that other champions don't have in mid lane. It opens up like the ability to play these different champions. I'm not saying that these are like counter picks. I'm not like staking my career on the fact that Azir and Corki are like good in these situations, but it's like you have to at least do like the mental prep and just see how the lane goes. And I think that a lot of things that can help this is like just doing 1v1s against like other players, like having Perkz and Caps go into a fucking custom game and be like, okay, how is this lane actually going to play out when they're both good?
Mm-hmm. And that is like the big thing versus Doinb, right? Like, and he's also playing stuff like Rumble mid. Let me see if it was Rumble first. Yeah. And then they counterpick Syndra into it. Mm-hmm. It didn't seem very good as a counter. It seems like Syndra runs out of mana and Rumble can just kind of take it up the butt for like the first few levels. And once he's like level 5, he actually has lane priority. And that was like a counter pick.
I was saying that when I was watching the game. It's like, how is a Syndra without Lost Chapter, like starting the game level 1, how are you ever going to be able to deal with the sustain of Doran Shield plus Rumble mid just pressing W? Like every time you're about to land a Q, he's going to press W. So like you need to full like rotation him to just get like a little bit of chunk, and then his Doran Shield's going to heal him up. So you just never can actually kill him. Now I'm sure that there are champions that are good against like Rumble mid, but it doesn't seem like Syndra is what you want. Like a burst mage that has to poke you down. Not sure if that's the pick.
The only way I viewed Syndra working is like Syndra can set up on Rumble really well because he has to be in close range, and Syndra can QE and then Gragas can come. But if you don't get the gank or Rumble gets the MR, like what happens? Like you're not killing him anymore.
Here's a 5-head move. What about Kassadin mid into Nautilus mid?
But
I'm telling you, like picks like that, they can work.
They can work, but then teams have to go out of their way to practice Kassadin into Nautilus matchup, and then you're playing with a melee mid laner, and then you have to wait till level 16. There's all these like things that you have to adjust to practice versus FPX, and people don't give credit to FPX for that. Like they're like, oh, they do cheesy stuff. Oh, they play stuff like Nautilus mid, Rumble mid. How can they be a good team? I feel like they don't get the respect they deserve because they are like the off-meta team. They play differently.
Well, because a lot of those times the off-meta team doesn't make it that far. They usually get solved. They get figured out at some point, and then everyone's like, oh, see, they weren't that good anyways. It was just cheese. You know, off-meta and cheese go kind of hand in hand, but we call cheese because it gets figured out. It gets rotten, it gets stale, but FPX has been able to do these picks and get themselves all the way there.
Yeah, I think that it's also just like the teams that they played against are like good teams for FPX so far at finals. Like playing against IG that they have like obviously they only played them twice in Summer Split, but they have like a lot of experience of like at least watching them. They probably studied them more. It's a more comfortable team. Fnatic doesn't seem like it has the flexibility to just play like everything. They have it from certain roles. They don't have flexibility from other roles. I feel like a team like G2 should be able to like overcome these things. I mean, it's obviously going to be difficult. They're going to have to like do a lot of work to make sure that they're ready for all the different
Oh no.
Oh,
we lost our...
Dom.
All right, Dom's back.
You're muted.
Hi. I'm muted?
No, you're back.
No, okay.
You froze. You're good.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, essentially it's just like, I think that you just have to have a team that is able to like not get flustered by the different looks that FPX throws them.
One thing I wanted to do is, now that you kind of brought up IG is the team that played against FPX and a good matchup for him, I wanted to focus on IG just a little bit before we move on and talk about FPX up against whoever they're going to play up against G2, and then we move to the G2 series. I saw this tweet yesterday from Jat. It was pretty good. Balon got a lot of flack, especially in those final couple games, and his first game was there, but his first game wasn't that bad. But Jat coming out with some humor. Top 20 starting player still at Worlds 2019, number 20 Balon. Even Jat throwing some shade at a player. Jat doesn't normally do that. Balon didn't play well. What do you think they could have done better? Was it execution? I thought it was draft, but was it Balon playing that bad and giving the game on over to FPX? And how can a player, that is part of one of the best bot lanes, I think, still in the world, play that poorly?
He was always boosted. He was always boosted, and he was a Rakan one trick. But Rakan was so good, and Rakan Kai'Sa was so good, and all he had to do was follow Ning around whenever Ning would go in, and that was it. That was his role. Ning plays Camille, Ning plays Xin Zhao, and you just follow him around, and you make sure you're there for the fight. Play Braum, play Rakan, and just follow your jungler. That was his role, and it was a very easy role for him to do, and he kind of got carried to a world championship.
I think that this is also like, you got to remember, Jat made this tweet before he saw Effort play in And maybe I guess with the fact that Mata's playing too, maybe Balan's still number 20 and Effort's number 21. But like Jesus Christ, that Leona game 3 from Effort was probably the worst support performance I've seen at Worlds.
Yeah. I thought he jumped the gun a little bit on this one, but is still funny. But I mean, again, like you said, watching the last 5 minutes of the IG FPX game 4 was painful. But even before that, it was Balan just kind of playing poorly and getting caught, not doing the job that Loco could clearly outline without being in the coaching room, without being in the strategy meeting there.
The meta was when he won Worlds, the meta was very, very one-dimensional and very, very simplified regarding.
It was very China. It was such a good meta for China. It's like you get fucking level 3 off crab, like level 2, the crab spawned, right? Like it spawned at 2 minutes and people just had to fight over the fucking crab like that early into the game. Like that was just what it was. It's like, damn, early action. That's what China wants. Like now there's more strategy in it, you know? So like, it's not all about, hey, playing Camille, doing like every single thing was so figured out. And it was just like, who has better mechanics? That's essentially what that world championship came down to. It's like, you're going to do the same pathing on every champion. You're going to go red, Krugs, crab, red, Krugs, crab. Every single fucking champion does the same exact thing. And then whoever is just like, stronger mechanically is just going to get into the fight and win.
Yep. Oh, also, let's talk about the negative gaming. Daniel, can you put that tweet up?
Yeah.
So this was before the semi.
This tilted me so hard.
Let me find it. All right, here we go.
Can you open up the situation? Tell everyone what happened. So let's start with the sOAZ tweet.
Yeah. So sOAZ was playing solo queue as most people in EU do, non-toxic, of course, and sOAZ tweeted out, hey, who's this person that is inting in my game? And so it was just one of those random letters spattered together. I'm trying to pull up the tweet now.
I mean, one thing that this showed me is how delusional Chinese fans are. Like they're just so crazy, like supportive and delusional.
Yeah, it's idol
like,
culture.
Yeah, it's so crazy compared to like how it is in NA. Like if an NA player did that, doesn't matter who it is, like people would have a hard time defending it. But like, I guess in China, it's just more okay to just be like completely like unrealistic of like what happened and just like say whatever you think defends the person.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, sOAZ tweeting, who is blah, blah, blah in EUS trolling my game and going AFK Worlds account. And you can tell it's a Worlds account just due to the insane MMR, and you can have low number of games played and then you'll be extremely high up.
Mm-hmm. And then this is the tweet back from Invictus Gaming. After understanding the situation, we would like to clarify JackieLove was not negative gaming. It was a normal Summoner's Rift experience. We are prepared for the upcoming semifinals. Let's go Invictus with, JackieLove.
I think that this actually showed how much of like Tencent's bitch Riot actually is. I mean, obviously they're owned by Tencent, but like if this was anyone else, they would like there would be some pushback. There'd be some discussion at least. But it was like, JackieLove clearly into the game, right? Like he literally started Rift Herald and just died to level 5 by himself. He was AFK in the base. He got like the lever warning, like, hey, like if you don't move around, you're gonna be like kicked from the game. So he walked from base
to Krugs.
tried to do jungle camps, right? Tried to do jungle camps, and then just went to Rift Herald and killed himself on the Rift Herald. Like he's clearly just inting the game, right? And one thing that I think that Riot has never addressed is like how they view punishing players. Like I was obviously somebody who was banned for a year based on what they perceived to be like my level of like toxicity in solo queue, right? No clips, no logs, no Reddit threads. There was no one even knew that I was considered toxic before that point. That was like where like the whole like thing about Dom being toxic started, right?
people knew you were a bit toxic, but not the public.
I don't think anyone. I've never seen any person tweet at me that I was toxic or anyone like say anything about me being toxic. Like it's never in any thread. Like it was like I had like a different perception publicly, right? So that happened. I was banned for a year. That was like the standard. If you're toxic in solo queue, you get banned for a year. Then you have like Sven Skaren. Like he got Worlds Games suspended because his name was considered racist. Like right, like so he fucked up in solo queue. He got games off. JackieLove didn't get any suspension. Like he didn't get any. And I think that obviously they couldn't do it, right? Like there'd be such a big uproar from China if they did bench JackieLove for like, let's say they just
suspension one game, just one game.
Yeah, one game suspension. They didn't.
One
they didn't
ban.
do it.
Yeah. Nothing like that.
Like there was nothing that they did. When there was the problem with Road, where he was like being racist or whatever, or like when Road was trolling in solo queue, whatever worlds that was, I don't remember. I don't even fucking remember what team Road was on, but I just remember the ruling. He got like a 2-game suspension.
Who was that Direwolf kid that got like banned for a game or so?
Schernfire.
What did he do?
He is
toxic.
Toxicity in solo queue.
He's a known toxic player though.
Yeah. So you have like all these players that the standard has been you fuck up in solo queue. If there's like a big enough stink about it on Reddit, you get some type of suspension. JackieLove got nothing. Granted, it is like semifinals of the tournament, right? So it's like higher stakes than like the other players got banned from group stage games. I still think it's so ridiculous that there was no comment from Riot. It's like they just allowed him to just run it down and he got 0 punishment, 0 flag, anything.
Yeah, I've got it up on the screen right now.
And IG's able to come out with like a bullshit statement like that. Like, how delusional is that? Where he said it was a normal Summoner's Rift experience. Like, tell that to my face. Come to me. I want to sit in a room, watch JackieLove run into Rift Herald and suicide and look at an IG coach, have him look me in my eyes and say, yeah, he's trying his hardest. This is the best he can do. This is our Worlds player that just won a World Championship last year. This is his level of play when he's trying. Like, look me in the face and say that. I don't believe it.
There'd be 2 bullets in the back of your head and people would call it a suicide.
Yeah, good.
2.
Like, I'll fucking take it. I'll be the fucking martyr, and then maybe we'll get like a system that actually works. I'll die for a fucking cause then. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, it is ridiculous how Riot's staying away from this with like a 500-foot pole. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, it's so obvious that they're just whipped by Tencent. It's like, oh, Chinese player does something? It's fine. Oh, Forgiven's toxic in solo queue, 4 games of LCS. Like I got banned for a year. Jensen got banned for 3 years based off solo queue. Like the thing is they never actually like went through and detailed which punishments were given for which reasons. Like they're kind of like, oh, this guy was toxic, so he's banned for this length. This guy's toxic again, he's banned for this length. It's kind of arbitrary. And now we've kind of seen that like if you're Chinese, you can just get away with a lot more shit than you can if you're, American or European.
Maybe. I mean, I would love to hear something from Riot about it. It was reviewed or whatever. But most of the time,
they're gonna give you bullshit. Riot does their best to protect pro players they deem valuable. The way they protected Griffin regarding like the investigation, and it's actually like the senator going out of its way. When Riot deems like something to be a valuable asset, be it a pro player, then they'll protect it as much as they can. When they feel like it's not important or replaceable, I'm not saying Dom is replaceable, but at the time, Riot viewed Dom as like just a replaceable player.
Who replaced you? Who was
Crumbs? It killed the team. The team went from being a world contender to like Dignitas never made worlds again after my ban.
Was Crumbs on the roster beforehand?
He was my top laner.
Okay, so
like we decided that I was like the person that was supposed to jungle for the team, right? So then like he was like, oh, I can also jungle. So then like that got downgraded, and then so Crumbs had to learn a new role. That's obviously going to hurt the team, and then they had to bring in a new player playing top, which was Kiwi Kid, and obviously he was not very good. So
I used the wrong word. More so than replaceable. If Riot deems you unimportant, they're not going to protect you. But if Riot deems you as like a valuable asset, they're going to do everything in their power to protect you.
I mean, I'll always feel the same way. I feel like most people that are in the scene kind of viewed it the same way. I think they just tried to make an example out of me. I was like popular enough where they could like show that they were strong and they were willing to ban somebody that actually had a following. But I wasn't so popular that like I would be like there would be a huge uproar if I was banned. I wasn't like Scara level of popular at the time, or Voyboy level of popular. I was just like known but not like important enough where they would take enough flack to justify their reasoning. And also, I think the timing, like now Riot's made so many mistakes that people are more skeptical of them. Like obviously with this JackieLove thing, it's super obvious that they just don't hold people to the same standards and like they're influenced by like Tencent and like China and all that stuff. But at the time, there was no reason to believe that Riot would do anything that was like unethical, or they would just like lie about something in order to make a certain statement. People just took it at face value. So I think that just in general, like this is like one of the biggest problems with Riot Games in overall is that they have complete control of all their leagues where other esports don't. So they don't have to answer to anyone when they do something like random like this. They can just make up their own fucking
executioner.
Yeah, they're the judge. Yeah, exactly. So
just look at Tyler 1. Do you guys think like Tyler 1 would have ever gotten unbanned if he wasn't bigger? It wasn't like the morality or the ethics of like what Tyler did. We don't think is so wrong anymore. It's what he did was still very fucking wrong, but he's so big and it would help our game, so let's unban him.
And do you think that like he would be able to get away with people will always say like other people are toxic? He is still by far the most toxic League streamer in terms of like the things he says. Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna fucking like rip your arms off. I'm gonna come to your house. And there are people and they're like, right? It's like, it's his stream persona, and like it's just he can get away with anything because of how big he is and like how popular he is. And Riot has like went from being like, oh, some of the people that are like toxic to us, we're gonna like shun them, but Tyler can say whatever. Like Tyler, I mean, obviously there was that thread, right? Like, do you remember like when I flamed Chody Walrus for his looks? Like I was like, oh, like the only thing you're better than me at was eating, right? A couple months ago, like about 6 months ago, there was a huge Reddit thread with Tyler one where he like told Xmithy that he was like, holy shit, you're fucking bad and you're so fucking ugly IRL and like all that shit. And it was like it was an upvoted Reddit.
Tyler's funny, but it's just like Tyler funny.
Yeah, exactly. And there was no issue. He was still invited to every event. Like it just depends. Like Riot is so like focused on the money, right? Like there's such a money first organization that they don't mind if they seem delusional or that they seem like they have a lack of morals. They're just going to do whatever they think is going to make them the most money. So keeping JackieLove in pleases the Chinese fans. They make money off that. Bringing Tyler to like all these events pleases those fans and makes money off that. And I'm fine with like them being lenient on people, but it's like, why are you lenient only on the people that are famous? Money.
Yeah, so it's tough because I don't want to come off as the Riot apologist here, but I think all those situations, yeah, but I will. But I think all those situations have had small different things, which is why I want to hear, because so while I was asking Crumbs on your roster already, why was that important? Well, it was the same thing with Svenskeren. The substitute that SK had brought, the one player that could replace.
I don't think he was even brought at that point, was he?
It was Gilius.
It was a Gilius.
But he wasn't.
So wait. No. Wait, Daniel, you're saying the punishment, they adjusted the punishment in case they have a sub or something, then that's a terrible punishment in the first place. Like the punishment should be punishment should be set. Like you do this and this is the punishment you get. It should be fair across the board. It's you do this and depending on if you have a sub or not, you get this kind of punishment.
If a player does something and there is no substitute behind them, the team can't play. Like that.
No, they can. Yes, they can. They can always bring a sixth. By Riot rules, you have to bring a sixth player. It can be in any role,
and that player plays with the role.
Yeah. It shouldn't matter what role that person is, and the punishment gets adjusted. Like that is an actual fucking kangaroo court. Like that is what Riot does.
So I'm saying, like, I agree with you. It should be just a consistent either way. And then what Dom said, you know, be lenient or be hard, but don't like swap either one based off of the situation. However, I think I see that thinking because they'll probably look at every single unique situation and be like, all right, this is unique to this one thing. This is unique to this encounter.
They're the one judging the uniqueness of it. They're always the one judging uniqueness of it. When there isn't a rule and it's like, well, we believe this situation is unique because of X. We believe this situation is unique because of Y. Don't fucking tell me there are rules. That's just Riot judging.
I think it's just so funny, especially just because like Tyler's one of my friends, right? And like he talks about this stuff publicly. He'll be like, I can just do no wrong anymore. He's like, I can say whatever the fuck I want. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And Reddit will always have my back. And like, I'll never get in trouble with Riot. Like he literally says this on his stream and it still doesn't have any effect on like, Riot doesn't care if they're delusional. If the people that are even benefiting from it are calling them out, like even Tyler's like, hey dude, this is like kind of fucked up. Like this is not like fair or whatever. And they still will just do it because they're so money focused. I think that's like really what triggers me the most about Riot is like, they won't even come out with like some reasoning or whatever. They'll just ignore it. And they're just lucky that the average League of Legends player is not like salty enough or like angry enough or like they don't have enough scrutiny to actually do something or view Riot as like less. They're just kind of like, whatever. Like this is happening. I'm just going to fucking play my game.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it would be a big problem, and it wouldn't rub me the wrong way if Riot didn't always advertise themselves as like the goody two shoes. Like they're like, we're industry leaders. Like look at what we're doing for charity. Look
at how we treat women. Oh wait,
yeah. Like, no, you know what's funny? They had like they had that woman conference like
oh god,
for coding or something. Mm-hmm. Like during the time there was like a walkout because of how they were treating women.
Yep.
They're like, guys, ignore the walkout. Look what we're doing here for women. Like
we're doing a women's workshop. We're doing a workshop for only women and non-binary. It's like that's still that is still being sexist. Like that is still what sexism is. You're doing things based on sex, like instead of just like viewing people as equal. But yeah, let's just move on to G2 SKT. Like this, I could talk about Riot being bullshit for hours.
Let's do that. All right. So GG, IG, FPX moving on through to the finals. All right. SKT G2. This was the big anticipated rematch of the semifinals at MSI with Caps saying he's going to clap Faker. Faker being confident, but not overly cocky like he normally is. And it was a solid series throughout. A series where SKT looked like the better fighting team multiple times, but G2 constantly, whenever they lost a fight, were finding something across the map to get. And it made these wins, these quote-unquote wins for SKT in fights, not worth as much, whether it was Perkz split pushing, or it was Cap split pushing, or it was Wonder split pushing. Someone was always able to take something off of a team fight until big team fights broke out, and G2 were able to take the lead, except for Game 2 where Klid popped off, and that was probably the most dominant performance in this series. Like, Klid just dictated the game there and basically won the game for SKT. But overall, what are your thoughts on the series there, Loco?
Well, I'll talk about my thoughts on the series. Daniel, could you open up the tweet I sent you on Discord? So G2 is so fucking good from playing from behind. I think G2 is like, they do the trash talk. They have all these like fancy flex picks, and that's what people really know G2 for. But G2 is secretly the best macro team in the world. And that's something that doesn't get talked about enough about them.
And they're so calm. Like that's what I like about G2. That's what gives me like kind of the feeling like they're going to be champions is no matter how the game's looking, they're just like making the best decision they can at the time. And it's really hard to do that. Like when you feel like you're getting pressure, when you feel like you're losing, when you have to take trades that are inherently negative, like you never want to be giving away Infernals. You never want to be giving away free turrets. You don't want to be giving away Barons and stuff. But when you have to take these types of trades, they're so willing to just accept it and move on and just be like, what is the next thing we can do? What is the best like play that we can make in these situations? And you can tell that there's an internal team discussion, and they're just so willing to like put two people bot with TP. They're willing to commit to one side of the map. They can't fight a dragon, right? Oh, we can't fight a dragon, and Wonder's getting shit on by the Renekton as Camille top. 4-man fucking gank the Renekton, kill the Renekton, get a shutdown gold, open up the game, let Wonder farm until he's back in it. When things go wrong, it doesn't flush them at all. Wonder hard ints the fucking early game as Camille versus Renekton. Like hard fucking ints. Gets solo killed, misses his E on the wall, like dies to Elise, fucks up the gank even. Like when Jankos comes to gank, he fails his E. He like clicks the wall, he double clicks it because he's so nervous and because he like just was messing up so much. And they just play the game normally. It's like, okay, that's fine. Like you can tell they're just willing to like be like, okay, whatever like happened, it happened. What can we do now? We need to split Wonder like in the bot lane. We need to like focus on these objectives. We need to be ready to fight in these certain ways. And then as soon as they like get everyone like situated, they're just willing to like make the call that's going to win the game. And I feel like that is just what champions do. Is it doesn't matter how bad the game is. You feel like they're still always going to find a way to win. And that's how you kind of always felt about SKT. And now that's how I feel about G2.
The calmness part that you mentioned, I really like what other team would be nervous? Like, oh my God, we're giving SKT a second Mountain Dragon. Holy shit, this game's going to be bad. Holy shit, can we give it to them? Like, don't we have to take this fight? We're going to be fucked if you give them the Mountain Drag. They're going to get Baron. Like, they're like, it's calm. Like, stay, like, things are fine. Like, just go topside. We can't take this fight right now. Keep scaling. Like, people say that all the time. Don't worry, dude. Like, keep scaling. Like, we can beat them once we get these items. But G2 can actually do it and actually pull through on it.
Well, the thing is, they proactively scale. Normally, like, other teams' mentalities towards scaling is, hey, let's just do nothing. And if we just like keep on farming at the same rate that they're farming, we'll eventually be stronger. It's like, that's like their mentality of what scaling is. It's like, okay, we just stop giving them advantages. We farm, they farm. At some point, we'll all have enough items where it doesn't matter that they have more gold. We'll just have like 6 items as well. And at that point, we're just going to win because our champions are stronger with those items. Whereas G2's mentality towards scaling is like, well, we need to scale. How are we going to scale? Well, we're going to take this turret. We're going to like make this play for this turret that's away from them. And we're going to get more like gold on everyone through that type of play. We're going to gank this person who's overextending, even though he wins 1v1. Like we're going to gank him, get a shutdown gold, and we're going to scale through like getting advantages when the other team has to do things. So like when the other team's committing for Baron vision, they're making plays around bot side. When the enemy team's going for dragons that they can't contest, they're either diving the top turret, they're ganking Khan on the top. I feel like that's just such a different mentality towards getting yourself to the point you need to be. Whereas like other teams will just like slowly concede everything until they get to a point where they think they can fight.
Yeah, the proactive scaling part that you mentioned, I think really showed in game 1 where they were losing and they're doing like the top dive. But also like the big thing is Caps was strong. Rest of the team was so weak. they couldn't team fight, but Caps was strong enough that they're still using Ryze to split push and still forcing SKT to not be able to start Baron directly and constantly deal with the Ryze.
Yeah, and here we have your tweet that you put up earlier from LoL Esports Stats, one of the best sites for your stats in any competitive league matches. And it talks about the goal differences between G2 and SKT and how it visualized there. They really didn't spend a lot of the time, although they won 3 games, with a major lead in the series. A lot of the time you see squads control the game early and then never release it, and it just grows bigger and bigger. Here with G2, they went with this different approach against SKT, doing everything that you guys just outlined, where it's like, hey, look, we can't win this fight, but we can take this turret. Hey, we can't defend this turret, but we can catch the other guy on the other side of the map because we're going to lose that turret anyways. And you can see here constantly around just the middle part of the game, around 20 minutes that's when the game started to blow open either way. And even in those G2 wins here, they were still losing in goal difference until they were able to pull away.
That's actually such an insane stat. 2.3% of the time with a major lead. And the major lead is only considered 51.5% of the total gold in the game. So that's like what? Like how that's like you're winning by like 1K when people have like, 20K gold and shit like this. I don't know. I feel like that's such an insane like amount of time to be behind. And then it just, if you remember the games, I mean, that's just how it realistically was. Like they were just losing until they won, like in every single game.
There's snowball aspects to the game, right? Like when you're winning, like you get stronger items, so it's easier to win a team fight. Like you get more control over the map. Like that is a huge part. But these are human beings that play the game. When they're losing, especially on a world stage, there's so much pressure. It's hard to play the way you normally want to. Like it's hard to be calm. It's hard to make the right calls. It's hard to avoid team fights. It's hard to take the correct risks. But G2 is able to do that so consistently every single time. Like for this series, like G2 was never in a match point where they could potentially lose. But G2 does that all the fucking time. They did it versus SKT at MSI. They did it versus Fnatic.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. I mean, that was one of the things that Nemesis said beforehand is like the biggest strength of G2 is their mental strength. And it's like not only evident in terms of like game point and series like that, even within losing games, like they're just able to make the best decisions they can. And like, even if the decisions are bad, like you can even tell like the Elder Dragon game where they're just like doing Elder Dragon. Like they're just saying like, hey, just go for this shit. Like let's just 50-50 the smite. Like that's the best thing that we can do to potentially win. And then when they lose, they're like, yeah, we did get outscaled this game. Okay, go to next game. Like we'll fix the problems for future games.
Even in this game 4, you see how often the graph is red, and it's just how often like SKT is with a gold lead. Yes, SKT had the gold lead most of the series, but it was negligible. Here, even in that final game 4 where they're able to come back and win, it was just it was SKT's game to win until G2 just constantly put them in a position to answer questions that they weren't prepared to answer. And it goes back to the point at the top of the show that we were talking about with Korean growth and Korean learning. They play conservative so well, so efficiently, but with China and coming in and the way that G2 and Europe now are starting to come in, you're now starting to see many different situations at different times in the game that a lot of these Korean teams that practice a ton and put in a lot of time towards perfecting their style haven't seen yet. And it leads to a little bit of a brain fart, and that's when SKT can come on, or that's when G2 can come on in and take these victories.
And we talked a bit about game 1, like them trading dragons and them winning. It was just really standard for G2. My other big thing was they gave Perkz Xayah, and like when Perkz gets Xayah is an infinitely scaling champion. There's very few champions in the game that can outscale Xayah, and they also had a Ryze, so they just kept scaling until a point where Xayah Ryze can carry team fights, and they just won the team fights off of that.
Also, Perkz is like by far the best Xayah in the world. It's like not even close. Like the way he plays Xayah, he just understands like feather placement and like his ults are so fucking
never makes a mistake.
Yeah,
so fucking crazy.
He always ults. Like every other Xayah you watch like gets caught. Even Uzi would get caught on Xayah. He has his ult up, his flash up, Gragas ult will hit him. He never gets hit by the CC that will kill him on Xayah, man. Like his just overall mechanics are so clean.
There's like a pussy way to play Xayah. You're back of the team fight. You're hitting the tank. Like you only use ult when someone's like flashing and try to kill you. And then there's like Yan way to play Xayah. You're just hitting the important targets and you're so ready to ult the CC that's coming, cleanse flash, whatever's coming at you. He gets maximum damage off without dying. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, his vision of the team fight, like you can tell that he like there's just two ways of playing like AD carry, right? Like we always talk about like Reckless's way, and then you have Perkz' way, where it's like Reckless is like going to wait for major cooldowns to be used and then clean up the fight once the major cooldowns are used. Where Perkz is going to like bait out the major cooldowns. He's like, try to fucking
up in your face. Like he's up in your face, like he's telling you,
like go on me and see if I have the reactions to ult when you actually like close the distance and when you put me in kill range. Like when somebody goes on him, he's just instantly ready to like reposition the fight. And I feel like they play really well around him. Like it's obvious that in team fights, like they know who the important targets are, and G2 is just willing to like sacrifice random. It's like just fucking flash in there, get a knock up, and then just die, Yankos. That's all you're worth at this point as a jungler, right? Where other teams, like every man is kind of for themselves. Like you see like junglers and like supports like in the late game just like playing the fight super cautiously, trying to make sure that they live. G2 gives no fucks. It's like, hey, go in, run in, and die for me so I can kill everyone. Like, I love that type of shit.
Game 1 comp was Xayah Ryze as major carries and Rakan Rek'Sai Kled. All the rest of the team they're doing is going in and eating cooldowns. So Xayah and Ryze can take over, and they just do it. They know if they eat the proper amount of cooldowns, their team will carry, and it's just so good to see.
Yep. Yeah, I love the way they play.
Yeah, I love the fact that when we got to see the pop-off victory for SKT, it was Teddy on Yasuo. Game 4, when they close it out, Perkz is like, let me show you my Yasuo. It was 5, 6, and 6. It wasn't great, but I got the job done.
He got so fucked by like circumstance there. Like I don't really blame him for that scoreline. Like it's really, really hard to play like Yasuo into like he had to go Sterak second. Yasuo into Qiyana when the Qiyana's ahead. What the fuck? You just get one shot. Like you have no counterplay to it. You get purely one shot on Yasuo for like the majority of that game. The biggest mistake that game was Jankos doing the Ocean Drake the way he did it. Like level 4, him just starting the Ocean Drake and just like, cause he had a lead, right? He got first blood. He's ahead of the Elise. Not only did he lose his level lead because he got killed there, he also gave the enemy team Ocean Drake, and it allows the enemy team to get through lane phases where like they weren't winning any of the lanes, right? Like Perkz and Mickey were winning bot lane really, really hard. And without an Ocean Drake, it's so hard for Varus to like farm in that lane. No flash. How do you walk up and get minions? Like you have to just throw spells from long range, and Varus has high mana cost spells, so it's really hard to do that. But Ocean Drake just allows you to bitch out that lane so much more. Qiyana into Syndra, that is a lane that is so hard for the Qiyana early game, but then the Ocean Drake allows him to like farm more. So that game to me should have been a loss, but they were just able to hold out, and they just took really good fights in the mid game. They just out team fought them in the mid game when they shouldn't have been winning fights, and they gave themselves a chance to win. So I definitely respect that they're able to at least identify like when there isn't like a macro win condition, and it's more just like, hey, we just have to like outfight these guys. We just have to like fucking whip it out, slap it on the table, and see who's bigger.
We can go to game 4 in a bit. Let's talk 2 and 3 so we can do it in chronological order and we're not jumping as much.
Well, even then, I just wanted to touch on, because we'll get to it in game 3 because of how poorly Effort played, but like Effort's Leona in game 1 wasn't that bad. He lined up the solar flares really well, and I think allowed Teddy to get in there and make plays. I don't think it was his fault that G2 won, and that led to the substitute. So I just want to throw that out there before we get to really bad Leona play on game 3.
I guess one thing I wanted to say just overall for the whole series is I thought that the Qiyana ban from SKT was really bad because G2 showed. Scared. Yeah, but G2 showed in court. Like obviously Qiyana's a really strong champion, and G2 and SKT definitely like really respects the power of Qiyana. But I feel like in these matches, Qiyana has to be the first ban that you drop out of like that whole like top echelon of like bans that go out, because not every team can play Qiyana. We haven't seen Caps play Qiyana mid yet this tournament. We've only seen Jankos play jungle, and when he played at jungle, it looked bad. When they played against Damwon, they were early. Like G2 was banning Qiyana themselves, so like maybe something happened in scrims where they caught wind of like, hey, G2's actually a good Qiyana team. They just like sucked in these games specifically. But I feel like they have to let them. They have to make them prove that to them. Like it felt like even in the game where they left it up, right? Game 4, they leave it up, and G2 doesn't take a first pick. At that point, like they felt pressure that they needed to take it just so that they're not giving it to G2. but we don't even know what G2's priority on Qiyana is. Maybe G2 just hates Qiyana and is not going to play it the whole time, especially when SKT was banning it on blue side. Like game 1, they're banning it, second ban on blue side. They pretty much just told G2, hey, we don't plan on playing Qiyana for the rest of the series because that's normally a purple side ban, a red side ban. So I don't know. I think that was like something that I really disliked over the course of the series. I thought Qiyana priority from SKT was way too high.
So in a best of 5, when you have a champion like that, like Qiyana, where the enemy team kind of failed on it, right? Jankos had a miserable Qiyana in group stage twice, and they permabanned it versus Dom1 Gaming. You open it game 1 and you see if they pick it, and you kind of get the temperature on how the enemy team feels about the pick. But when you kind of jump the gun and you ban it yourself to start the draft and start the series, the enemy team is like, oh my god, like look at this, like look at these idiots. I felt G2 laughed whenever they saw
they literally were smiling on cams. They were smiling when the Qiyana bit. They're like, really? Like they're banning Qiyana after what we've shown? Like we've shown our Qiyana. It's like 0-7 both times we showed it. Why is this pick like considered must ban for SKT? It's like they didn't even let G2 like prove to them that they can play the pick.
Yeah, it's so stupid on what SKT did. And then speaking of the other ban, the one ban that G2's keeping looks like
Akali?
Yeah, Akali. I think they banned Akali because Akali's one of the best picks versus G2 because G2 is so good at flexing. When you take Akali, she truly has no bad matchups in mid and top lane. Even the worst matchup top, stuff like Jace, like stuff like Gangplank, isn't that bad and you can deal with it. So it's such a good pick versus G2 in general.
Well, I think the one pick that actually like shits on Akali super hard that G2 plays is Kled. Like that's a champion where I would love to see people leave up Akali and just if they play Akali top, just Kled into Akali. It's just the most AIDS matchup possible. The Q reveals, the E reveals. It's like you hit the Akali with anything, she just doesn't have a shroud. Akali without a shroud isn't a champion. So yeah, I don't know. I want to see like how that changes. I'm not sure how Akali priority is going to be going into the series because one thing that they have to consider is like we haven't seen Doinb's Akali. We've heard that he doesn't play a very good Akali, which means that Gimgoon might be forced on it. So you could like potentially prep for like the Kled into Akali matchup. And G2 is just a team that loves Kled. Like obviously in finals versus Fnatic, they played like a bunch of games of Kled. It was getting counterpicked by Bwipo's Jax, but they showed that they just like Kled as a team. The Kled into Renekton, it isn't like a super good matchup for Kled. It's like it's a very skill matchup where Kled can kind of scale decently into it, and then maybe like towards the mid game, you're able to like at least lane enough on the Kled into Renekton that you can get the Kled out of the lane. But I don't know. I think that that Akali priority and Qiyana priority is going to be really interesting. I think that G2 might just ban Qiyana every game, every side against FPX.
Yeah, FPX seems like a way better Qiyana team from what's shown. Like G2 just has the last time they showed Qiyana was in groups and it was not good. What else? Okay, so going into game 2, the one game that G2 did lose, I thought their draft was pretty garbage. So it starts with G2 first picking Rise. SKT responding with Renekton Gragas. We'll talk about SKT's Renekton priority in a bit. And G2 straight defaulting to Ornn and Ezreal. I thought it was one of the worst things that G2 could have done. Like pick Ornn that early in the draft and allow the enemy team to counterpick with Yasuo when they already have a Gragas. It was the one draft in the whole series where I felt like, damn, G2 fucked up so hard in draft.
Yeah, I thought the draft was really bad. I think that Ornn into Yasuo is just horrible. Like, which is why I thought Ornn was so good in game 4 from G2 is because they picked it when they already had the Yasuo. Like the Yasuo is just the biggest counter to Ornn imaginable because every time you throw your ult, you just don't play Ornn with an ult. Yep. And that is like the biggest strength of Ornn is a super long range engage.
Guaranteed engage on vulnerable backliners.
It's super valuable. And playing that into Yasuo was really, really weird. I feel like they just kind of I think G2 just kind of got baited into like picking what they thought was strong. And then they didn't end up with like a comp that really made sense because of it. They're like, okay, we have like all these champions that we like. And then you look at the comp and it's like, wait a second, like none of our like, how do we actually win into what the enemies have? So I think that's just a really important part that they got better at throughout the series. Like when drafting, they were drafting things that made a lot of sense into the enemies as opposed to just kind of like just taking whatever you think is strong, just drafting over like, because some teams just draft based off like the priority of champions. They're like, oh, what's the best this up? Oh, we think that this is really good. Okay, we have this. Oh, what's the next pick that we value a lot? Fucking, we like Renekton a lot as a team. Okay, just put Renekton on the team. And then it's like, wait, we just ended up with a team of like nothing that synergizes well together at all. So I'm pretty happy that G2 was able to identify that and change it. But the main reason that they lost the game 2 draft that you talked about was because Jankos got pinched. His whole champion pool got pinched. And that was one of the things that you learned from that game, is that he only has 4 to 5 junglers. Like potentially he might still play
Olaf,
Qiyana. Gragas, Olaf, Rek'Sai, Elise. And all and those are banned. Yeah, and so they banned Elise themselves, right? But it's something that Jankos played. Like he played a game 3 and played it really well. So they were forced to play Jarvan Galio because that was all they could play. But that's actually terrible into what the enemy team had. The enemy team had 5 champions that all have dashes.
LeBlanc, Renekton, Gragas,
Yasuo, Gragas, Renekton, like what Lee, LeBlanc, none of those champions can be CC'd by Jarvan and Galio. So they were just, that's one thing that I think G2 is going to have to like understand going forward is like, hey, if we have like 2 to 3 of these champions banned, we need to take our jungler in the second pick phase before the second set of bans go through, because you don't want to be forced to play Jarvan Galio into comps that make no sense just because you play Jarvan Galio.
Another thing, like this game in particular really told me was SKT learned a lot from Dom1 Gaming versus G2. So when G2 played Dom1 Gaming, they had a very similar setup where they're playing into Yasuo, Gragas, and they have a Ryze mid lane. So they will invade the enemy bot side, take the blue, and then dive them really early, right? Because Gragas, Yasuo, you can stack waves on them and then get like a 3-wave dive, and they did that to Dom1 perfectly. But versus G2, versus SKT this time, they were ready for the invade. They were able to trade 1-for-1 for the first blood. They never let the dive happen. So they just learned from what G2 did to Dom1 Gaming and made sure it didn't happen on their end when they were playing Gragas, Yasuo. And the other thing that Dom1 did terribly, they also played Lee Sin LeBlanc into G2. But when they did it, LeBlanc was running teleport. And that tilted me so hard. But SKT, way better, actually running LeBlanc with Ignite. And also, like, LeBlanc into Ryze isn't the best matchup for LeBlanc. It's a matchup you're opting into, thinking to yourself, I have to kill the Ryze over and over again, and we have to get mid and jungle prio along with the jungle. Like, if we don't, like, this matchup isn't going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, but that's another problem with the Jarvan pick. It's like when you have Jarvan Ryze into Lee LeBlanc, like you can't win that 2v2 really unless the Jarvan Ryze like somehow outplay really hard. Like the LeBlanc has to really mess up for that to happen, because the way it's going to function, at least post 6, is it's going to be chain into like one shot. Chain lands, the guy's just dead. Yeah. And Jarvan does not have the guaranteed CC to be able to stop any of the damage coming through.
Mm-hmm. But it is like a matchup, if you don't win, like you fall off so hard on the LeBlanc versus Ryze side, like LeBlanc becomes worthless if you're not getting kills on Ryze.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just think that in general, just going forward, G2 just needs to like be comfortable. Like they play enough junglers, right? They like, let's say Jankos doesn't play Qiyana. He at least plays Elise, Lee Sin, Olaf, Rek'Sai, Gragas, right? He at least plays those 5. So just don't let it get like, if you see like a lot of these bans coming in, 5 is a good pool. And it's okay if you only play 5 junglers, like, or you're only ready to pull out 5 junglers. Just make sure that the only time that you're willing to let the enemy team pinch your pool is if you're into things that are low mobility, right? Like if the enemy team is drafting, because you know, like certain teams, like for example FPX, they like drafting things like Varus, Tahm Kench. If the enemy team is Varus, Tahm Kench, and like Nautilus mid and stuff like that, Jarvan Galio's fine. Like that's completely okay, because you're against a bunch of immobile targets. You can get the engage and then it's fine. But if you're drafting this into like a bunch of champions with jumps, the Jarvan Galio engage is so useless. I don't know if you remember the fight mid where they like Perkz actually ended up like flash queuing on Ezreal and picking off the LeBlanc, and they tried like Jankos just EQ flash ulted, and then they just Galio ulted, and instantly the Yasuo, the Renekton, just flashed directly on right Perkz and just turned and just one shot him, and it was like, that's why your comp sucks there.
That was Perkz' fault, 100%.
That was 100% Perkz' fault for shifting forward.
Yeah.
No, he E'd in, and then he got insta-deleted. Like, that was, like, the one moment where I was like, damn, Perkz isn't, like, super used to playing AD carries, or he miscalculated a cooldown.
Well, I mean, I think it's just more that, like, he's trying to, like, you can tell that, like, the call is, like, Jankos is like, okay, I'm going. It's like, we're, like, here's our combo. We're doing our combo. And then it's like, wait, our combo is fucking useless. Like, Jarvan ult doesn't keep anyone inside the ult. The Galio ult to synergize with it misses everyone as well. It's just a situation where it's like, yeah, like they just draft Jarvan Galio is just not viable into everything. It's like a very niche thing that you run into low mobility AD carries and mid laners.
Yeah, unless you're TL, you just try to run it all the time.
Here you go. I got it. I'm pulling it up on the stream right now. Also, Perkz shifts forward and kills Faker. I think it was also just a hyphy moment. It was one of the few moments where
he picked off the other guy too. He got a double. So
and then boop boop.
But so the thing that was really important about that fight was the fight started with SKT using so much cooldowns to kill Ryze. And if you look at the rest of the comp, it's Ornn, Ezreal, Jarvan, and Galio. As an Ezreal in that fight, you have so much responsibility to carry and play properly because your Ryze ate all the cooldowns and you're the only carry left, so you have to play well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, if he doesn't E in there and he's shooting Q from max range, like he's in such good spot.
And then we'll watch it one more time because it's just so good to watch because I'm like, wow. Like, I just think it was the hyphy moment. I think it was a hyphy moment.
Yeah, but just in general, like if you, just play the fight one more time and just see how useless the Jarvan Galio is.
All right, so
the combo is.
There it is. I'm going to slow it down here for everybody. Playback speed at half. So there's
good
your
W.
Jarvan Galio.
Good flash Q.
Play.
Look at the Jarvan Galio. The flash ult into Galio ult. Like, look at how useless this is.
No one's there. No one is there. Klid's outside. Khan's outside. Teddy's
They all
outside.
just instantly get out of it. They all just instantly get out of it.
So in the meta where Jarvan Galio was really strong was when Sivir was like a really big part of the meta. Sivir as a champion really struggles with Jarvan Galio, but yeah, like the current AD carries like Zaya does decent versus Kai'Sa. Yeah, like all these dash champions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like pretty much the only time that I think that they can draft this in the next series is if the enemy team picks Varus, which they've shown that they like Varus. So Chinese teams do like Varus Tahm Kench as a lane. I just think that's the only situation where you let this go through. If not, you just take Jankos as jungler on the second rotation every time. Like if you think that there's a possibility, like let's say you get to that final thing and 3 junglers are already taken, right? Like the enemy team is already taking Gragas, they might go Gragas Yasuo or some shit. And then you have Elise, Qiyana banned. So you have 3 out of the 6 that he's like is mainly comfortable on. So Elise, Qiyana, Gragas, Rek'Sai, Olaf, Lee Sin. If 3 of those are already banned, you don't let the enemy team pinch you and ban 2, pick 1. Yeah, you don't go to that last one.
Well, also the thing is, most of the time junglers picked in 1, 2, and 3 anyways. It's like one AD pick and one bot lane pick, solo lane pick, and a jungle pick in the first 3. I think it's pretty rare to let jungle go to 4 and 5 any. Like,
I mean, G2 does it a lot. They did it in game 4, for example, right? Like they picked Syndra.
They have Gragas as one. You know, G2 is able to do it because they usually have something like a Gragas and they have so much flex picks. So the 4 and 5 draft phase versus G2 is almost worthless.
Yeah, but the thing is, like when they draft Gragas Yasuo like that, I'm not sure if G2 actually, like, even though it is technically a flex, I haven't seen them play it mid yet this tournament, right? They haven't been playing jungle, or maybe they played it once, but it seems like they want to put Gragas Yasuo as their bot lane when they draft that. So, and Syndra, they haven't been playing bot.
Like, as you said, if you pinch jungle there, like if you start banning stuff like Rek'Sai, Olaf, and then you force pick Elise and you're like, oh, Jankos, you have nowhere to go, then 100% they'll just go Gragas Yasuo mid.
Yeah, you think so?
If they pinch the jungles, then of course, why not?
Well, because I mean the other option would be like, yeah, just playing the Jarvan in that situation, just giving your lanes like what they want. So you play like, because that team comp makes a little bit more sense where you have like Jarvan, Yasuo, Gragas bot, Jarvan, Syndra is like a decent setup, mid 2v2, etc. So like, I guess it's viable. I'm just not sure how good it really would be.
I mean, Caps played Yasuo in the down 1 game, and that was like the game where he was like counter jungling by himself. Well, not by himself, like with the coordination of his team. And like Jankos is also really good Gragas. So I don't think they'll have that much problems like shifting it to mid and jungle if they really need to.
Yeah, I mean they played it once, right? They played it once versus Damwon. I'm just not sure like if they like in a situation like that, it seems like the reason for that draft, right? Like the reason why the Gragas Yasuo is picked there is because they want to shit on the enemy bot. They have such a good matchup in their perception of it. It's like, oh shit, we're playing against Varus bot lane with like a Gragas Yasuo. That's like the freest thing ever. So yeah, just really depends on what's up.
All right, let's talk about game 3. This one was the game where it was Ryze, Kai'Sa, Rek'Sai, Renekton, Leo for G2. Xayah, Nautilus, Elise, Camille, Ori, or Xayah, Nautilus, Elise, Camille, Ori for G2, excuse me, and Ryze, Kai'Sa, Rek'Sai, Renekton, Leona for SKT. This is the game where I thought SKT should have 100% won. Like Renekton, Rek'Sai, like killing Camille. Like after the second kill, they had the wave frozen, and instead of freezing it, they had fixed range minions. They just pushed it all the way, and Camille got like a free lane, and Elise was able to come back and save the Camille lane by killing Renekton. If they froze that, Camille would have been absolutely demolished. I cannot believe they didn't freeze.
Wonder should have lost the game alone for his team with how he played like the first like four levels. The first 3 levels essentially were just so bad from him that most teams are just going to lose off that. I think the big takeaways from that game, for me at least, were that they don't have a really good like G2 doesn't have a really good answer to Renekton. Like the best they can do is like stalemate it. They don't really play like the Quinn. Like we haven't seen them play Quinn into the Renekton. I know. I think SKT banned the Quinn.
Yeah,
maybe one of the games.
Quinn in game 1.
Yeah, so they did ban one of the Quinn once, but they don't prioritize like the counter picks into it. So they don't play like a Kennen into it. They don't play the Quinn, etc. At least we haven't seen it yet. Wonder hasn't played much GP into it, so they don't have a good answer to Renekton. But they do have a really good answer to Ryze, which I think could be really important in the next series. Like giving Doinb Ryze and then potentially playing Qiyana into it could be something that they end up doing.
So here's my thing about the Qiyana. Caps is so much better when he's not on a champion that kind of has to sit mid and that can move first. Like Qiyana is really strong for her laning and her team fighting. Like she's not a great champion when it comes to roaming or skirmishes, especially in the current meta where people have so much dash shift. It's nearly impossible to land your ult. So even though Ori into Ryze is a good pick, like people play Ryze really differently now. Like they just they get the initial E and then they wait for the second E to come up and then they go Q on the creeps that are already E'd and then EQ. And they're clearing the wave instantly, and it's really hard for Ori to kind of fuck with the Ryze, even though she's like the better laner. So I don't really like the Ori pick that much.
I mean, I thought that they played it pretty well though. Like Caps was able to like get a small CS lead, and then they were able to like play around like the Elise, Qiyana, Camille, just like coming mid with a bunch of people and picking on the Ryze. At least like the Ryze is not something that just like hard shit on the lane. You know, like they have some type of answer to it. Which I think like yeah, in general, it makes a lot of sense that Ryze still can do all the split push stuff, but in a team fight, Qiyana is still king over Ryze. And Qiyana paired with like a good AD carry like Perkz is super OP, right? It like enables your AD carry to play way more aggressive later on because of the shield.
Okay, another counterpoint. So in this game, Ryze and Renekton versus Camille, where the Camille got shit on early and then she was still able to come back. When you have Ryze Renekton, you can do the play, especially when you have 2 Mountain Drakes that we talked about. Ryze Renekton both go bot lane with teleport, kill Camille, force G2 in a situation where they either have to start Baron or they can force the Baron 4v5 on them. And SKT never did it. Like SKT, this game showed me how little they know about like the current macro and how stubborn they are. Like Ryze Renekton is perfect for shadow play and it's perfect to kill Camille. And the fact that they don't do it like shows me like how bad Korean macro has gotten.
Well, I think one of the big problems with them doing that play is normally when teams go for that play, they have Xayah instead of Kai'Sa, which gives you wave clear mid lane. But when you have like Renekton Ryze and your the other part of your draft is what, like I forget what I think it was Rek'Sai. I think it was Rek'Sai, Kai'Sa, and Leona, maybe. You have no wave clear. You have no way to clear the wave mid. So it limits your ability for the Ryze to split push, which I think is like really, really impactful like in that series because the Ryze, like Faker kept on going to the side lane. But as soon as he would go to the side lane, G2 would just like hard force down the lane. They just run at the turret and there's nothing that Rek'Sai, Leona and Kai'Sa can do about it. So I think that that's just like a big weakness in the way that they drafted Ryze. It's like drafting Ryze when you have wave clear is really important.
Yeah, and that does play a part, but it's just SKT didn't even look for it, especially with them having 2 Mountain Drakes up. So I feel like if they did that, then it really plays into Ryze's strengths instead of just going for starting Baron and forcing that random ass 5v5. Then Qiyana is so happy. Also, like SKT is garbage with Baron. I think G2 got Baron once and SKT got Baron 7 times. I said this even before the series started. Yeah, SKT is god-awful with Baron. They love split pushing with Baron. Well, they split push in a really bad way, where they split push and fan out and everyone's just like farming and like waiting. I think what's happened is in Korea, macro has gotten so conservative. Whenever the enemy team gets Baron, people are super used to just like, okay, they have Baron, everyone like go back in our base, let's defend, like let's let them take turrets, let's let them farm it out, we'll fight after they have Baron. And when in EU, it's like, okay, they have Baron, once they're seizing, we're going to lose inhibitors, we're going to lose turrets. We need to make sure we fight them before they're able to get into the siege position. And Korean teams are just so unused to people like kind of contesting them when they have Baron.
Yeah, or just like killing one of the side. Like when you 1-3-1, when you split up that much, like your side lanes are vulnerable, especially when you do it with the champions that that SKT does it with, right? Like when you have champions like Like they're having like I remember in the first game versus RNG, they have like TF in a side lane, and then they have like Renekton in a side lane. It's like these champions can just die. It's not like you're playing with things like a Fiora or like a Camille that have longer like have abilities to really get out. If you catch like one of these champions off guard, they're just gonna get one shot. So I'm not a fan of how I'm not a fan of 3 lanes splitting the Baron all the time. I'm much more a fan of what G2 does, where they will 3-man mid, 1 person bot, and then 1 person shadowing. 1 person that's rotating between mid and bot. And it's where is he? What it gives you some uncertainty in the play. It's okay, how many people are actually here? You don't know. Whereas when a team is clearly showing in three waves, right? And you see all 5 members, you can make a much better decision on who's the weakest one, how can we attack this?
Mm-hmm. Well, most teams go into 3 lanes to get all 3 waves started, and then they'll converge into 2 or they'll converge into 1. Korean teams just stay in 3 lanes and they're we have Baron, no one can hurt us. And then when they get engaged on, they're how dare they? We had Baron. How could this happen? We don't do this in Korea. It's just gotten so bad. I feel Korean teams usually being isolated and playing against other Korean teams made them better, but it made them so conservative this year, just playing against other Korean teams and learning how to play and beat other conservative teams.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think here, that was game 3, the big takeaway, the big after not properly using Baron and G2 really showing everybody why they were able to constantly find ways to get tower gold, to get gold in different ways other than just straight up fights. Game 4, we got the swap out. Mata comes in, effort goes out. Was that
I didn't like that, to be honest.
So,
I know Ever played really bad in game 3. I just didn't like. I just
no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just felt like Mata just wasn't supposed to be playing. He just wasn't. He didn't have a good performance when he played the series before. He clearly was the sub.
That was a skin game. That was a skin game versus.
Yeah, that was literally just a skin game. So even though Mata played well in the beginning part of the game, who knows? Maybe Effer would have played worse. You could see that Mata got caught out a bunch later on, and he wasn't as comfortable playing with the team.
A big Mata problem from before is Mata made his name by playing Thresh and by people ganking his lane, and then him kind of doing his macro. And then that was a huge problem on KT, where Smep was a carry player and Mata wanted to be bot side oriented. And eventually Smep gave way and KT became a bot side oriented team, and that's when they had success. SKT has been a mid and jungle oriented team for such a long time, and I think that was a big problem with Mata kind of fitting in there. And also I don't think he worked very well with Teddy. They're playing Varus without a Tahm Kench. They're playing Varus with a Nautilus.
Varus
Mata wants to play towards bot side.
Yeah, that's why the Olaf pick was so good. I mean, I loved the Olaf Ornn pick into that. It just seemed like it was the perfect draft from G2. They really outdrafted, and then they misplayed in the game. I can't stress enough how hard Jankos fucked up by doing that Ocean. Obviously, he's really, really strong, but when you don't have flash on Olaf and you're doing an Ocean Drake, and you're not level 6, you have to be very, very careful. Ocean is the most dangerous dragon because it slows you, right?
Yeah.
So if you're an Olaf, you're in the pit hitting an Ocean Drake, and anyone comes anywhere near you, you're just fucking dead. So if they wanted to do that, they did have mid and bot priority, but they didn't actually use the priority to secure the dragon as a team. They just kind of had Olaf doing it by himself. And dude, a level 4 Olaf, it doesn't even matter if you have 2 long swords or whatever, you're still going to get relatively low. You're going to get 300, 400 HP while doing the dragon, and just dying there, losing all the tempo from dying, giving the enemy team Ocean. It gave SKT a chance to get through the lane phase, because before that, their bot lane was almost unplayable. After they got dove, I don't know how Teddy and Nautilus can even walk up to the lane.
Yeah, I mean, G2 overforced the bottom play. It was when Syndra TP'd in, Vladimir TP'd in, and I think Ornn wasn't there, or he was there late, and SKT come out ahead in that play, and that really put their bottom back in the game. But even when Varus is back in the game, look at the lane setup. You're either versus a Syndra, you're either versus a Yasuo, you're either versus an Ornn. In mid game, they couldn't do anything, and the Varus had to constantly run away. He couldn't be in any lane, and he could only group up for team fights.
Mm-hmm.
Another big thing that was really happening was I'm gonna speculate, and I'm gonna say because it's Mata that came in, but you have a Qiyana Elise versus a Syndra without a cleanse, and they didn't gank.
Yeah, they didn't gank it once
until 15 minutes in the game. I thought that was terrible.
It was hard to gank him based on because I watched a little bit of the pro view. Caps plays that lane extremely well. Like he's actually even the Orianna game. I thought similarly. I'm like they're definitely going to be able to gank this, right? Like Rek'Sai rise into. I think he had no cleanse on the Orianna. I think he took TP that game. I'm not 100% sure about that, but in general, like he's really good about playing like to the right side of the lane all the time. Like his fundamentals have gotten so much better over time. Because Caps used to be like this like hyper aggro player where it was like he would just like kind of rely on outplaying and he wouldn't really think through all of his moves. But now he's so smart about just always making the correct play of like, hey, we know that the enemy jungler is going to be on bot side. I'm playing to top side. He sets up his vision top side. He gets his vision down and he just makes sure that he's playing like a stable lane. And mid lane, if you play it like that, is really hard to gank with a lot of these champions. Like Syndra can farm from pretty far range away. Same with Orianna. So I think that SKT actually made the right decision, even though like they weren't able to capitalize on the Syndra. Qiyana was able to even farm the lane and then roam and get advantages through the roam. So I was actually okay with SKT playing it like that. I thought that it was an intelligent way to play it because Caps was not giving them the opportunity to gank him.
Maybe it was Caps not giving opportunity, but I just can't imagine. It's a Qiyana Elise versus a Syndra. The lane should be pushed in towards Qiyana. Syndra can't keep both sides warded, and like it's two people with flash and one person with flash. Even if you fail a gank and you trade 1-for-1 with flash, later on the second gank with flash is so guaranteed. It was crazy to me that Syndra didn't run cleanse, and then it was also even crazier that she didn't get ganked.
Well, so I thought about the cleanse more, and I actually think he's right about not running cleanse because cleanse actually doesn't save you if you get engaged on like that. Like most of the time, you're just still fucking dead. If you get like flash E'd by Caps and you cleanse it, and then Elise they just put in their pure damage, you're fucking like almost gonna die every time. So you'd rather just have the TP to be able to play it. And then also, what Caps was doing was so there's two ways you have to play like the Syndra Qiyana lane, right? You either take the risk where you push it into the turret and then you try to harass him under the turret when he has to clear, because that's when Qiyana is most vulnerable, when she's all the way back in her turret and she has to use her spells to clear the wave. You either harass them under the turret like that, or you just push in the lane and you let Qiyana free farm. And I think that Cavs was playing it more towards just letting the Qiyana exist, especially once they got Ocean. He understood that he was never going to get off enough meaningful poke, that he couldn't win his lane like that. He needed to just let the Qiyana like exist and then try to just get to like the point where they're even farming, because it's just too risky to go forward in that instance. So I think Caps did a good job of just not giving them, like not letting them have that chance, like not spending time trying to harass the Qiyana under turret and letting Clid go for a gank. Like he just pushed the wave, backed, let Qiyana roam, which is definitely like the reason why I think that SKT should have won that game, because Qiyana did get roams off. But I don't think that it was that winnable from like mid jungle. Like it wasn't like they were going to get their major advantage there.
If that's the case and that's what happens, then like Caps has ascended to another level, because this guy, the thing he's known for is super high highs, but he's also vulnerable to ganks, will overplay, will be too confident sometimes.
Yep.
If he's at that level of play and if that's how he's playing the game, then he's like, yeah, he just leveled up one more time.
I think he did actually level up. I mean, if you look at this tournament in general, right? How many bad games has he had?
It looks like argue he won that Cassiopeia game versus Griffin, but he had to overplay due to how badly his team was playing.
Yeah. He's been so consistent in this tournament compared to like his normal level. Like he's always had ups and downs, but he just doesn't have downs anymore.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yep, he's so good.
I want to be able to credit Nyankos for a little bit as well, probably giving that information, and now he's used to playing like that, because I think we can't just look at one player and be like, oh yeah, he knows where the jungler is the whole time. Usually the jungler knows where the other jungler is, and that information he now knows how to properly utilize it, as well as you talked about, make the lane uninteractive. Like we know that Kled wants to come mid, we know that Faker's the main player. Don't give
for sure. It's so much easier playing lanes in competitive play versus solo queue. In competitive, like everyone's always feeding each other information about where jungler can be. Like you at least know which side he's on. In solo queue, no one's ever feeding you information.
Yep.
All right,
dude. Another big thing was I hated Khan's build. Did you see how he built? I think he built Khan. He was Vladimir. He built.
He went like early death cap, right? Wasn't that the build?
Yeah, he went death cap, Spellbinder, and he didn't buy Zhonya's until like item 5 or item 6.
I hated that. Yeah, I remember that too. That was really awful in terms of the build. Dude,
you're playing versus Syndra, Yasuo, Gragas, Ornn. Like you need the Zhonya so badly. Like I cannot believe he's willing to build Vladimir that way.
I think that his mentality was like, oh, I could. He relied on being able to like pull and not get caught by the CC and not get CC locked. And he wasn't like just insta dying in fights. Like it wasn't like he needed the Zhonya's for that reason. I feel like the reason he needed a Zhonya's is so that he like had the opportunity to just go way more aggressive within the fight and just buy more time for the team. But as soon as you start throwing that game like SKT did, it just feels so doomed because you have to rely on the Vladimir 1v9ing. He's really the only threat. The Varus is not going to carry that game. He's not going to be able to get through the Ornn and the Olaf quick enough to the Ornn, the Olaf, the Gragas quick enough, and the wind wall that's going to be blocking his autos in order to like actually win that fight. And Qiyana just becomes a piece of shit late game. Like, that champion just falls off so hard. It's like Olaf but for mid lane.
He actually started with he started with stopwatch, used it at I think the turret dive on the bottom side of the map around 11 minutes, and then sold the stopwatch. He sold the broken stopwatch to sell out to get death cap after a spellbinder. So
Zhonya's is just such a natural buy on Vladimir because he also had CDR boost and then he sold it for sword pen later. It's such a natural buy because most of the time your first two item is Codex, it's Fiendish Codex and Kindle Gem to hit 45% CDR early as possible.
So did you see what his adaptation to that was?
CDR boost, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he went CDR boots instead of the Codex. That's the 900 gold purchase.
And he had to sell it too. It's just
that was his like adaptation to it. Was like, I have that 900 gold. I could buy the Fiendish Codex. Instead, I'm going to go CDR boots. So I'm going to go CDR boots, Kindle Gem, and get my CDR that way. I mean, I guess it's an alternative way, but I just don't think it was like, maybe there's matchups where that's optimal, or maybe that's good
He also was running klepto. Maybe he wanted the CDR that way and a little bit of movement speed so he can farm the Ornn harder. But just run phase shift, you idiot! Just run the shy build. I hate the Nuguri build. I hate the Nuguri build. I think it's garbage.
I hate it in almost every situation except for this, because at least this time he's versus a true tank that should never be able to kill him. Right? Like he's versus things that he should never die to. Like you shouldn't need phase rush to survive an Ornn Olaf gank as Vladimir. So to me, it was like, okay, this is the one situation where I'll give you the pass. You can run klepto.
It's not just for the lane. It's also in team fights when you get your initial combo and you're going into pull, like getting that movement speed and being able to go deep into people and follow AD carries and mages that flash is really important. So it's not just about like getting golden lane, or it's not just about running away with phase rush like to ganks. It's also really important in team fights. And I just hate klepto as a mastery. I think it's so garbage on pretty much every other champion but Kayle.
Yeah. I mean, it's just too good on Kayle because of the E.
Yeah.
It's like too OP.
And then what'd you think of the Shaker moment? What'd you think, like him going in, killing that pink ward?
And then die? Well, I mean, I understood. Like, so the reason why I feel like he looked so tilted and why he was like shaking was because he knew at that point it's not up to him anymore. He's Qiyana. At that point in the game, he's already completely outscaled. It's like he's just sitting there like, please, Teddy and Khan, carry me. Like he knows that he doesn't have the agency to take the game into his own hands anymore. So that to me just said a lot. It was like, damn, you can tell that he just feels like the reason why he's so nervous is because it's not up to him anymore. And normally it is up to Faker to like carry the game late. Not when you play Qiyana. And I feel like I feel like they didn't even want to play Qiyana. Like they went into the series banning it on blue side. And then they felt like they needed to drop a ban later on in the series. So they naturally dropped the Qiyana as that's like the easiest one to drop. And then you get into the situation where it's like, fuck, now do we have to pick Qiyana? They gave it to us. Like they didn't first pick it. Now we have to play it. Like I would have liked to see if they left it through if G2 actually picked it. Because I don't think G2 would have. I'm not sure if they would have actually played Qiyana.
It's so hard to do that on game point. If they wanted to do that, they had to do it way earlier in the series.
Exactly, which is why I said it was such a bad ban game one. Because when you ban it blue side game one, you pretty much just tell your team, like you tell the enemy team, we do not intend on playing Qiyana this series. We are just going to ban it all 5 games.
Yeah. Game one is really important in how you kind of set the series and how pick and ban plays out. You really saw it in the FPX versus Fnatic series where FPX opened up TF and they're like, we don't care. We don't care about your TF. Play your TF. Like and we genuinely don't care. We're going to beat it over and over again.
And then the Renekton, the like Quinn into Renekton, like that was like, that matters so much because it's like, okay, we're giving you Renekton. Let's see your counter pick. Okay, your counter pick is Quinn, standard counter pick to Renekton now at this tournament. And then it's like, oh, well, we didn't win with our Quinn into Renekton because you guys just grouped up. It's like, okay, well, now we just have to fucking ban Renekton.
And Man, SKT were just lacking in so many ways, and G2 was a better macro team. They were also way more calm under pressure. That's a Korean trait, like to be calm under pressure, and that's a very much like a SKT faker trait. And it seems like G2 has all of that. It seems like G2 is the new SKT.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very fair statement to say because we've always said, hey, look, no Worlds with SKT without them getting to finals. No world, and even when they lost finals, it was still such a shock that they had lost to Samsung at that one time. So I think they're the epitome of being cool under pressure.
Yeah, I feel like they're more like a Samsung White than an SKT because SKT always reminded me of like really like crisp but like super standard gameplay, right? Mm-hmm. Like it never felt like SKT would have these really strange picks. I mean, I guess there was like the MF. Wait, I think the MF pick was actually from Rocks Tigers into them, and then they played it later on in the series. But like they just played like the most standard good League of Legends possible, where they had like good priority on the things that were strong, and it was just like they always ended up with similar drafts. I feel like Samsung was more like this like flex vulnerable, like, hey, we play like all these different champions. Like we play Jason like multiple lanes. We play like Loopers playing like a Kali and like fucking semis and shit. I feel like that's just such a different like mentality. Like instead of like they have the like mental characteristics of SKT, but they have more of like the team dynamics of, you know, like a Samsung White to me in terms of just like how they draft and stuff.
I said previously, like bigger the stage, better the faker. It's now bigger the stage, better the caps, better the Perkz. Like these guys play so well under pressure.
Perkz looks like the best player in the world. He actually does. It's so insane.
And that whole series, they were laughing. They're smiling the whole time. It was nuts. It's nuts to see them be so loose. And they beat, you know, I think one of the big demons. Do you think that they felt like they would feel more proud of the win here against SKT compared to FPX? Like, they
haven't beat FPX yet.
No, I know. But SKT has such a storied history behind them. They also won back at MSI against them, and they're like, oh, this is the rematch compared to like, yeah, this is the World Finals, but it's against a team that we don't have like a lot of history against, and FPX is a newer team. You know, you beat the 4-time champion in Faker. Like, do you feel like this is they mentally were prepared more for this game than the FPX game?
I actually don't think they're that mentally prepared. I'll try to explain what I mean.
Sure.
When you're like a kid and you really don't know like the dangers of the world, like you feel like you can do anything, you feel like you're on top of the world, like you feel like you're the best. And I feel like G2 kind of has that mentality where they do respect, they respect other teams, but they don't fear anyone. Like they genuinely don't fear anyone, and they don't feel like they're the underdogs to anyone. So yes, like beating SKT is a big deal. Yes, if they do beat FPX, it will be a big deal. But I never feel like G2's afraid going into a match.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like blissful, youthful ignorance. I think that gets encapsulated here by Yankos. If last year someone would have told me we would have beat SKT twice in 1 year, I probably wouldn't believe him. And so...
really? SKT was pretty fucking bad in Season 8, so... like, I'm surprised that he wouldn't have thought that. Like,
see, but that's what I mean. Like, even with all that information, Yanko still is like kind of like...
Well, I mean, maybe he meant it in the way that he just didn't think SKT would make Worlds again. Like, who knows?
Yeah, just like, TSM was undefeated. TSM and G2, the only 2 undefeated teams at Worlds.
Yeah, true.
I guess FPX lost to the only 3.
All right, let's take a look at some tweets here. Wonder hopping on in. He had his tweet earlier. Tomorrow, we will be the first team to 3-0. And then Dom already highlighted the "inted so hard I had to put myself on Ornn duty" tweet. And then at the end of it all, good fun Wonder.
I actually have a clip from my channel because that's what I literally said before they picked Ornn. I'm like, he should play Ornn just because he inted so hard he doesn't deserve to play anything else. And then he actually he stole my fucking joke, man. How is he watching my stream while on stage? It's crazy.
They're that good.
Jesus Christ. He does do other things. I mean, you've seen his pro view, right? He like types, he has like fucking World of Warcraft up and shit. Like, Jesus Christ, man, this guy's an animal.
Paint.
Yep. He has paint. He's like writing to the fans.
Yeah, I thought this one was interesting here with Caps. Arrived in Paris last time I was here. I lost 2018 MSI. It's time to redeem myself in more ways than one. But also still having fun, even though he's thoughtful and remorseful of the last game. 3rd time's a charm, but this is my 2nd World Final, so I guess maybe next year. This was a good one, and I'm going to go full screen for this one because Poor Faker, man, can't catch a break. All right, let's see. Here we go. This one from LPL Linda, who does the translations for the LPL. The wheel on Faker's luggage fell off while he was checking in, and fans on Weibo are saying even the luggage is bullying him. Please let go off of Faker. This is something broke and everything just opened up there.
Speaking of like sad things for Faker and like sad things in general, did you guys see the SKT press conference?
I saw like photos and it just looks so depressing.
I hate the fucking questions that were asked. Like, I thought that those were just such fucking stupid questions. Like,
why were you shaking? Are you guys gonna rebuild again next year? Why the fuck are you asking these questions?
I just have no respect for any of those interviewers. They're like, okay, so Clid, people said that your performance was good throughout the tournament. You just lost the biggest series of your life and are now not going to be a world champion. How do you evaluate your own performance? And they just like went to each player like, how do you evaluate this? Like, Mata, you subbed in game 4. Like, how do you value your own performance? Like, effort, you got fucking benched. How do you value your performance? No one's gonna be like, yeah, I think I did fucking great, dude. I fucking did great and we lost. Nice. Like, what the fuck answer do you expect? It's like this Korean culture where it's like people love just hearing people just like be really like humble and like self-loathing. Like after a series, it's like, I wasn't good enough and I'll prepare better for next time. I didn't train hard enough. I need to go forward and like sleep less hours and play more. It's like, I don't fucking want to hear any of this shit, dude.
Dude, the only person that really asked a good question, I felt like, was Ashley King. Everyone else asked such fucking troll questions. And you know what I've done interviews before. I've been like a journalist for a little bit. The big thing is like, it's very hard to get players to come and do interviews. And it's like when you're given access to players like SKT and you ask questions like that, it's just, oh my God. I've been a player, I've been a journalist, like from both ends. I thought it was so fucking shitty.
But what are you supposed to answer like in terms of that? It's like, oh, so Faker, like you looked really nervous. Like when you started losing the game, like you were shaking a little bit and like it looked like you were frustrated and then you ended up losing. Like, so why were you nervous? Like, I don't know, maybe because the game was out of his hands and he felt like they were going to fucking lose. What else are you supposed to fucking answer? Like, are they really this dumb that they can't figure out for themselves the answer to these questions? Like, I don't need those questions to be asked to have the answer. So why are you asking the question?
Mm-hmm. So like there's people, so Darius from Darius Ex Machina, he's a journalist for EU. Like he's explaining like why people ask, like the question towards Faker on him shaking is 100% justified. Maybe phrased poorly at worst, but that player cam shot was something that stuck with so many fans. Not asking about it would be neglectful. That's the problem. The way you guys phrased the question was so fucking bad. It was garbage. The question to Goma on potential roster changes is also justified. As SKT, historically always underwent massive roster swaps after not winning Worlds. Just look at 2017. Timing is bad, yes, but 90% of journalists won't have access to Goma again. Shoot your shot. So if you're going to have no access, so you can your justification for asking a rude or a bad question is, I won't get a chance to speak to him next time, so I'm just gonna ask my bad question.
I mean, imagine if like after like Jensen like missed that like ult, the famous Echo ult, they're like, so after that play, like you didn't ult on Echo, your team lost game 5. That was the closest you've ever been to a championship, and it's like it's now been ripped away from you. Why did you have your like head in your hands? Like, why did you look so like distraught in that moment? I don't know, maybe because they just fucking lost the series and he fucked up. Like, what are these questions, man? Like, how can they just not like understand what a good and useful question is and what a bad question is?
I hate using the title journalist for myself because I know there's people like Doran, there's like good journalists in the scene and like that actually do research and that put work. I like branding myself as a content creator and not having that responsibility. I think like being a journalist, there is so much responsibility that comes with it. Like Jacob Wolf, Doran, like I can name the good journalist in esports on my hand, and the rest of them are just content creators or people with fans with a mic.
So just for me, because I agree with what you guys said to an extent, I also agree with Darius that when that is your lifeblood, that is your career, this is your opportunity to say it, you do go ahead and say it. But I very much dislike the execution of it, because for me, even when you use the Jensen situation, it's hey, you might not have been able to see it, but the fans were able to catch a view of your face cam right after that moment and just kind of want to see what your thoughts were. as you held yourself in your hands, right? Just
There's
let him
so many
explain that rather than like, why were you feeling that? No shit, we saw why, but what were you feeling that led to that? And that's the one.
Ask it respectfully, and also if it's your lifeblood, then carry yourself with like better dignity and better respect for your work and better respect for the players that make your work possible.
I mean, I just feel like the people that are the journalists just don't have enough game knowledge to ask actual like interesting questions. Like I would love to like hear about the Qiyana priority.
Yep.
It's like you started out banning it really early. G2 looked bad on Qiyana. Why did you think that Qiyana needed to be banned? You dropped it in game 4 and you ended up playing it yourself. Like, were you worried about them playing Qiyana? What gave you the like, why did you perceive Qiyana to be so strong given the performance of G2? That's a great fucking question. How about they ask about G2?
Do you think they know that much about the game, though?
Well, exactly. But it's like, if you don't know that much about the game, then get the fuck out of there. Like, I don't want you asking the fucking questions. Like, if you
How's
don't
the weather?
understand this,
How's
then
the food in Madrid? Are you
well,
gonna
no,
come back next year?
I don't want to hear about any of that. Like, there's so many interesting parts of that series. It's like, well, G2 is much more willing to like sacrifice objectives and play to the other side of the map when they felt like they couldn't win a fight. How do you think that that's going to match up towards like FPX and IG style, like the more aggressive style of League of Legends that we saw in the previous semifinal? There's so many interesting things you could ask.
Shaker, why are you shaking? Oh my fucking god!
Shake. Why are you shaking? Why do you look distraught when you're about to like lose your opportunity to win a 4th world championship? Like, what the fuck, man? Come on.
Yeah, I think it's just when it's in those moments where players start showing emotion, that's what the focus needs to be on. What are you feeling? Not like, why are you feeling? What are you feeling? We know why. It's what are you feeling, because we think we know what it is, but you tell us. You tell us what you're feeling in that moment.
Journalists,
and that really gets to show people to open up a little bit.
Journalists, you want to ask tough emotional questions with the player, start building a relationship with the player, start building a relationship of respect that goes back and forth. And the players and the teams will be more willing to do interviews with you separately. And then you have the opportunity to ask questions like that. But when the level of journalism is like this and the questions that are being asked is like this, the players don't want to open up. The teams don't want to open up.
Sure, I kind of agree with that. But again, I go back to the fact that what Derry said, it's their only opportunity to ask these questions with teams that are from different countries.
He's never going to work another international event.
I don't think he did it disrespectfully on purpose. What I'm saying is, build those.
No, that statement is true. That statement is false. Where you say like that's your only chance. If that's the last esport event you're gonna go to, then you're saying I'm not gonna be here again, so I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. That's a terrible attitude.
That's not the point he's making. What he's making is in that moment you have to ask those types of questions.
No, if you ask the question that way, then you're blocking yourself and other journalists from having future opportunities. It's such a shit way to go about it.
I agree.
You're blocking not only yourself, but other people from getting the same kind of opportunity and just lowering the bar for a journalist. And next time SKT has to do a press conference or next time a Western media wants to ask SKT question, this is the first thing they're going to think of. Oh, they're the idiots that ask questions like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think that your opportunity there is to like get the behind the scenes look into like what was going on, like how the teams prepped, like how like what was going through their heads during the series, like when the series adapted, when it changed, like when they won game 2, when they lost game 3, how did their mindset change throughout the series in regards to what happened in the games? That's what I think is the biggest story here. Like that is what you want to get. Like this is the opportunity where they're no longer in the tournament. Obviously the meta is going to be way different next year. You want to hear like their perception of the game, why they did certain things, how they evaluated G2, and why they think that their like game plan failed.
Yeah,
I think a relationship between like journalists aren't leeches. Like that, journalists aren't leeches. Like they're doing good journalist work and doing good content takes skills, but it's also like the relationship has to be there, like a relationship of respect back and forth.
I think that your job as a journalist here is to like give context, like bridge the gap between what the players thought, what we saw, and why the players played and thought about the game in that certain way, and like give the opportunity for the players to explain their reasoning for what happened in the series. Like I think that is the most interesting part about like being a journalist here, and the most interesting questions that you can ask. And it feels like they just failed to do that. They just like asked generic questions and we got dog shit answers. It's like, what what the fuck are the answers supposed to be? Like, what are they supposed to be? Like, yeah, we feel bad. Yeah, we played bad. Okay, next question. Like, I got nothing out of the players that I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Like, everything that's interesting was just gone.
Which is why Khan took to Twitter afterwards and was able to write out his thoughts in that way, basically outlining how he felt about the whole year, about how he's always wanted to be the guy that had the last laugh. In all his interviews, he's always said that. But no one really taking shots at anybody. Thank you to every person on our team working harder than everyone else, coaches and head coaches, family and friends that have supported us, especially overseas, to deal or work through this discomfort overseas. He's very thankful. And it seemed like a little bit of a jumbled mess, and he's excited for next year. Please always greatly support T1 and our players and coaches with encouragement and applause. They worked really hard. Thank you. So cool from Khan to cover that. Same with Mata. Mata actually said, it's been 8 years since playing LoL in Season 2, even though I'm worn out and tired. I think the big thing you take away from Mata's statement is that what do you say? I weirdly feel like LoL was more fun this year. It is
He
thanks
clearly
to my
didn't
team.
play in positional Q in NA.
Thanks to my team. That I gained confidence knowing I could be better with room to improve. So a couple of closing statements there by the SKT members, a couple of SKT members, along with Faker getting bullied by his luggage. But I wish we could have gotten a little more out of Faker, a little more out of Coma, nice quotables there. Instead, Khan and Mata, they feel confident about how they've gone through everything this year. All right, so that leaves just G2 and FPX here for our finals. Two worthy teams of it, two very different types of team compositions and makeups of players. We've already touched on how we think it's going to play out lightly, but let's get into it just a little bit more. We're hitting about almost 2.5 hours now. G2, the macro team that can play micro, can hang with everybody else. FPX, it's ram it into the wall until it breaks, and they've been able to get themselves all the way on into the finals. How do you feel about this as our finals matchup?
Oh,
I mean, I think G2 wins it all. Like, I can't see G2 really losing. It just feels like this is the moment. It feels like this is the year. I have full confidence in them. They look like they can play well under pressure. It looks like these guys can handle it, and I think Europe's gonna be like have their first real world championship. So I'm going G2 3-1.
yeah. FPX and G2 both have very, very well-defined colors and how they play the game. I feel like the way G2 wins and the way G2 play is so much harder to counter than the way FPX wins. Like the way FPX wins, like if you can disable Doinb, if you can beat them in the mid jungle 2v2, it's so easy to break them apart and it's so hard for them to function. Oh man, chat spamming Loco pick FPX.
Loco can clearly see the chat, everybody. If you're watching
I've been wrong about every single G2 prediction. So I said G2 would get first in groups. They got second. I said G2 would lose to Down 1. They beat Down 1. I said they would lose to SKT. So I've been wrong about every single G2 prediction. I said if I get 1,000 subs, I will pick FPX. I haven't gotten 1,000 subs yet, but just on the analytical side, like the way FPX
sell out. Sorry, that's so funny.
The way FPX plays, it's so reliant on getting Doinb started, and there's key picks that needs to happen with it, and they're good in team fights. And G2 just showed that versus SKT, it doesn't matter if you're better than us in team fights, if you have the stronger team fight team, if you're stronger than me, this very moment on the map, we have ways to play around it. So it's really hard for me to imagine ways FPX can win a best of 5 series.
So you're jinxing FPX, you're jinxing G2, is what you're saying?
I just want all how does FPX win? How does FPX win?
They don't win. The only way FPX wins is if you predict G2 to win. That's literally their only win condition.
I'm trying to think of ways. Maybe Wonder did look kind of weak, right? Like even on carry champions and even on tanks, like Wonder wasn't the best player. Gimgum was exceptional. That's an avenue that we can explore a little. G2 SKT series, Kale was barely picked. It seems like the Chinese teams have a better read on Kale. Like maybe Rise, once it goes over to Caps, Doinb, or once it goes over to Doinb, Caps doesn't have a really good way to deal with it. I honestly don't think Ori is the best answer for it. And Doinb has a really special pick into Rise, and so the Rise becomes a pick that FPX can utilize, but G2 can't utilize as well. So maybe there are ways like that, but it's really hard for me to like think of just like give you guys a coherent reason on why like FPX would come out ahead in the best of 5.
So what's your prediction?
Depends on my sub count.
Go ahead, doom them to eternity, Loco.
I
Doom them.
I also like picking different from Dom, but I do want to have like good reasoning for my picks other than just like, haha, I don't want to jinx G2. Like, it's just really hard to pick FPX here. You're going to have to convince me somehow. Like,
I'm not. I think G2 is just going to win. I just want people to know that if we're both wrong, it's your fault. That's all I want.
My fault.
It's your fault.
What do you think FPX does better? Just name me things they do better. I named you a few.
FPX, what do they do better?
Mm-hmm.
They play Qiyana better.
Okay, that's a thing.
Yep.
So like that's gonna have priority in the draft.
Which is already one of the issues that we've seen G2, their jungle pool. So
yeah, I think that I think that in general Tien has just outperformed Jankos so far. Mm-hmm. So I think they have like a better jungler. There's a chance for Tien to take over the series. I think Gimgoon has been like in the last series, it felt like Gimgoon was more stable than Wonder at least. Feels like you can give him GP and Renekton and he can lane into like pretty much anything that Wonder throws at him so far. I don't think that Wonder has the Quinn counterpick to Renekton necessarily. Like obviously he played in like Summer a million years ago, but I don't really care about that, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if he plays like the Lucian into Gangplank, so maybe he doesn't have like proper counters top lane, but that's pretty much all I can see. And I obviously think the strengths of G2 outweigh the potential negatives, like, but that's just the ways that I think that FPX could win.
I think there's an argument to be made. FPX has better jungle and better support players.
Yeah, I
thought Mickey played really well this last series, though. I felt like he was really on his game.
Just from last series, I think you can make an argument Mickey might be better, but if you take the whole tournament, I definitely think you have to lean Crisp.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
So FPX has better jungle and support. On some mid lane champions, Doinb can be better than Caps, then that can give them a better 3v3. Actually, that's one condition. If Doinb gets Rise, and then Crisp and TM play how they're supposed to be playing, then FPX should have stronger 3v3 and they should be able to get the lead.
I could see like a Rise Lee Sin game just like dominating Orianna. I could see that happening.
Yeah. It's just so like we have to go so out of our way to think of the ways FPX can win. So it's really hard for me to like pick FPX as the winner.
Yep. So what's your prediction? I won 3-1 G2. What are you going?
3-1 G2. Holy shit! What if they actually lose after I pick G2?
You're assuming the most hated motherfucker in the entire West.
I just don't see how they can lose though. It's just like I want to pick G2 because I just don't see a way they can lose.
Someone cut this up now and make like a whole compilation of Loco saying, I don't see how they could lose, and then make all those things, and then we're going to have like the clips of G2 like just
I want people to tell me how FPX can win. If someone can convince me like FPX can win, but I don't have a strong argument on how FPX can win. I can think of like 1, 2, 3 things they can do better, but it's just really hard for me to come up with like a strong, coherent reasoning. Hey guys, this is how they can win.
They should be the underdog. FPX should be the underdog coming into this, I think.
I think it's Gimgoon neutralizing Caps. Like we've seen Gimgoon be the type of, we just compared him to Crown earlier, a guy that is willing to play things to limit the other star, limit a star mid laner. And then bot lane, sure, you give the bot lane to G2, but Crisp, if Crisp is on his game, maybe he'll be able to carry LWX a little bit further than what we thought. And then we already considered the top jungle matchup a potential place that
do you mean Doinb versus Caps?
Yeah, Doinb versus Caps. Sorry, what did I say? Gimgoon. Sorry, Gimgoon on the top side with Tien against Wonder and Jankos. That possibly could be something that they exploit. So there's at least an avenue. I
just hope to God they don't play Camille into Renekton again. Like that was they're lucky they got away with it once. That is not going to go well a second time. I don't even care if Wonder plays it better. Like you just look at how the trades look in that lane. It's like you have to take Grasp on Camille to just get through the lane. And then you're waiting to like 3 items before you can even trade.
Mm-hmm. Also, the other thing is, what's G2's best pick what's G2's best pick into Gangplank? Because that's a huge pick from Gimgoon, and I don't think they have like that much.
So they don't play the Lucian. What would be his best pick into Gangplank?
Kled maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking Kled, but Kled is pretty bad into GP. If the GP takes grasp, like you can just win it as GP.
Wonder Swain. People are spamming Swain, but he hasn't played Swain at all.
I think it would be his Jace. I think Jace would be his best pick into GP.
It'd be Jace, or I guess he could go weird and go Swain.
Yeah, I would say GP. Jace into GP.
There's like few problematic picks. If G2 can find answers for, they'll be fine. I think those are Qiyana, Gangplank, Rise. We can add Rumble in there. Like they need to find answers to like FPX's weird stuff.
You just simply just don't want to play like a melee into grasp GP. Like Jax, fucking Camille, Kled, even Renekton. Like they all just get bullied in the lane by a grasp GP.
Yeah. Dude, I have to lean G2. I can't. I want to stay true to my prediction. I just really cannot think of a reason why FPX would win.
All right,
I'm gonna go 3-1 G2.
There it is.
I think I'll be spicy. I think it'll be 3-0 G2. I think G2 will be like.
I almost went 3-0 G2.
3-0 G2.
All right. Well,
there it is.
Some PCU
3-1.
Let's see what's better. Like G2 on the Rift or my curse against G2. 3-0 G2 for me.
We lost. Chat spams. All right. Well, there you have it. The wrap up of the semifinals and our prediction of the finals and how it's all going to break down. Anything else that you guys want to cover before we close it out here as we hit 2.5 hours?
I'm good.
Dude,
Your chat's so funny right now, dude.
Dude, I cannot imagine the amount of freedom that Chinese players are allowed. Like Doinb's wives traveling with them. Like they're going to like nice restaurants in Madrid, Paris, and stuff. When Ambition had a wife and he was playing at Worlds, like his wife stayed home, like so he's not distracted, and he's eating like canned tuna with his team. Like I can see why Korean players want to go to China. Like just compare like the life that Ambition had to lead, working up to the finals, versus like the life that Doinb had to lead. And I'm not saying one way's better or worse than the other, but
that's why Ambition is going to be Ambition was a world champion and Doinb isn't. It's because he has a wife. Squad W. His wife is with him.
Didn't they wait to get married?
No, they were already married before. It's just the life is so different. Like comparatively, like one side is just like all work, like so much discipline, like you don't get to have any kind of fun, and the other side is like so much freedom, like actually like just traveling around in Europe. It's such a stark contrast. And yeah, I see why Korean players want to go play in China, get paid more, have actual freedom, do whatever you want to do.
Yep.
All right, well, Loco, you got to do whatever you wanted to do, and you voted for G2 to get the victory. We'll keep that in mind as we watch the finals this weekend. And, of course, catch all of the action in the recap here on Facecheck on Monday next week. Guys, thank you so much. You guys at home, thank you so much. We're working to get things up onto a podcast. So hopefully we'll have that up very soon on Spotify, Stitcher, wherever else you watch your podcasts so that you guys can watch it on the road. Thank you so much. We'll catch you guys next week.